Welcome to the Hue-Man Experience.
My friends, hello and welcome to another new episode of the Hue-Man Experience. I am your host, Hubert Manley, aka Hue-Man. If today is the first time that you have ever tuned into this show, then I'm telling you what, you picked a good episode to start with, because today we have a very special guest, a human being named Yoshino. Yoshino is a brilliant artist and a podcaster as well. He has a brilliant show called Artist Decoded, where an artist talks to other artists. And here we are today on the Human Experience, where a human talks to other humans. So we don't get too caught up in titles and all that fancy stuff around here. But let me tell you, I'm a huge fan of Yoshino's work, both on the photography side, on the podcasting side, and it is a true honor to have him here on this show with us. I had to bust out the old student desk for this one because this man took me to school in so many different ways. I've recently come into the realization in my own life where I suppose at one point I thought that I had things figured out. I thought that I had to teach people, whatever that means. But as Yoshino quotes later in the show, a big theme from the previous conversations we've had here and in the Tao-Te Ching is the relationship between teaching and learning and teaching. They go hand in hand, and I believe that everyone is a teacher and everyone is a student. And I've just gotten more and more comfortable over the past month with my role as a consummate student. I don't think I'm special. I don't think I'm different than you or anyone else, except for the obvious differences and these pretty sweet overalls. But I'm comfortable being a student, and I really appreciate having Yoshino on the show because he taught me so much about life. And it was a pleasure to speak with him. So it is my honor and pleasure to introduce and welcome Yoshino to the Human Experience. We started this meeting with a 1.5 hour time limit in mind, and we busted right through that. We just kept going. And at some points, I kind of wanted to be like, hey, are we good? And then thank you, Yoshino, for the moment during the show where you said, hey, let's just keep going, because that made me feel a lot better about crushing through our time limit. So that's enough of me and the plants talking to you. Let's bring on Yoshino. Welcome to the Human Experience, and thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Enjoy. Yoshino, welcome to the Human Experience. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I got my workout in. Just getting on a decent sleep schedule out here in Brazil, and got the workout in. Had some food, drinking my coffee. Life's good, man. Can't complain.
Tell me about the trip that you're on. I'm so honored to have some of your time here. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for
Anytime.
doing this when you're on the road. What's your trip all about right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's all good, man. Anything for you, buddy. I like our conversations. We have really good conversations.
I
And I'm glad that we've been able to like reconnect from not talking for a while, because you and I kind of more or less like grew up together in a way, like I would see you with Preston, and we're both from the same hometown. Well, right? You grew up in San Jose, right?
Yep.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways, this journey, well, I've always wanted to do this where I am a nomadic artist, and I've been wanting to do this from when I can remember, since like 2018. I was living in Los Angeles for a really long time, essentially my entire adult life. I was living in Los Angeles, and actually, in Los Angeles, I started a photo series called "Leaving Los Angeles," or that's what I I called it, and that was in 2018, and that was kind of like where I started to aspire to want to live more of like a free flowing nomadic lifestyle, and so now I'm doing it. I'm about 6 months in, I guess. Um, Went to Mexico for 3 months, and I went back to the Bay Area for a couple of months, spent time with the family, and work remotely. And now I'm in Brazil. I'm going to be in South America probably until the end of November, and then go back to see my family, and then go back out again. That's the plan so far. So
Do you have a brick and mortar studio these days? Or is it all 100% on the road?
everything's on the road. Yeah, I don't have a brick and mortar studio. I had one in Los Angeles, like a couple of studios, over the course of time. But I mean, I don't take on commercial photo or directing gigs like I used to, um, which makes being on the road much more flexible. Uh, but I mean, perhaps I'll go back to that eventually if the calling is there for that. But yeah, so I basically just shoot for myself, go around. And I was thinking actually, there's a beautiful park over here that I've been doing calisthenics in and running in. Um, and I was actually thinking about going there and taking photos of the birds.
Yeah.
There's some very beautiful tropical, or what we as people from the United States would consider like more tropical birds, So, and they're all very friendly because it's in a park, and I think they're used to getting food from people,
Right.
So it's kind of it'd be the perfect opportunity.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I heard this joke. You brought up the birds, and I just had to have a good laugh because I heard this joke from some stand-up comedian recently, and he said, like, I'm 45 years old now, which means I'm officially in the stage of my life where I started caring about birds. And that also means that I'm 5 years away from absolutely hating squirrels.
What stand-up comedian is that?
Honestly,
Remember?
I don't even know his name. I think it was Gabriel something. I'll have to look it up
Uh-huh.
and maybe add like a little card up on the YouTube video for this for
Yeah.
where I found that, because I was really impressed. He was a guy that I had never heard of, and sometimes you give someone a chance and they really just blow you away. And
Hmm.
I should be able to remember his last name, but I'll find it.
I think that's a good lesson for life in general. You just
Yeah.
never know what sort of people you're going to meet. And, I think that's why it's good to kind of diverting a little bit from like the intention of what you were saying, but like, I think it's good to like uh, just treat everyone with like an equal amount of respect.
Yeah, I've done some traveling myself, and I know that you're
You've
out.
done a lot of traveling. Yeah.
I have, but I'm really fascinated by how you're doing what you're doing on the road. You run a podcast called The Artist Decoded, a well-known and very successful, just a beautiful podcast. Last week, you
Thanks,
shared
man.
an episode with me where you produced a very, I should say, you shared a very powerful Thich Nhat Hanh. Did I say his name right?
I believe
Quote.
so. I mean, I'm not, I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh, but
It's
I
Thich
could be
Nhat
wrong
Hanh.
too. I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been going through some changes in my life, in my mind, and you shared that with me at a very powerful time because I'm learning how to let go of stories of things that upset me or whatever when I'm going through my own process of what I would write about in the past as becoming. And I thought the message was really powerful, that what is there to become ultimately? And, as someone who is on the road and traveling around and experiencing new places and new faces constantly, do you feel that your life is always presenting you with exactly what you need in every single moment? Like, how do you be present where you are when you're constantly moving where you are?
Um, I mean, I think, yeah, it is a challenge in certain ways to throw myself in different situations. And I kind of like my theory behind that is essentially like as soon as I get comfortable in a place, then I move on to the next place. You know, as soon as I get into a flow, I move to the next place and redefine another flow. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but one that comes to mind is I believe I was reading the study where it was saying essentially that it's like people's relationship to time. And when you get older, you have a different sense of time as opposed to when you're younger, because when you're younger, all experiences are new experiences. But then when you get older, generally people, set into a flow and set into a rhythm or, accept their life for what it may be. And suddenly that time seems to move faster because you're essentially encountering the same experiences over and over and over again. So my theory, essentially, I mean, it's not my theory, but the thing that I'm trying to experiment with is that if I move to different places every 2 months or every month or so, like how my sense of time will change and also my relationship to time. And something that I've been thinking about too is I was actually writing about this the other day is there's a clock here and it's stuck at 10:57 and 12 seconds. And initially I wanted to change the battery in the clock, but then I was looking at it more and I'm like, is that like why do I need to be conscious of time in that way? When I was living in Los Angeles, because it's so expensive to live in Los Angeles, and also because of the environment that you're in, your sense of time with people changes. And I also think this is a very Western sort of like thing within living in a capitalist society in the United States. People's sense of time shifts, and I think like, yeah, I'm trying to experiment with just this idea of time and like how I spend it, what really matters to me, and perhaps it's different for me than it is for other people. But I think by me knowing what that means to me, I can live intentionally as much as I possibly can.
Mm. Yeah, I keep reminding myself recently that it's always just right now. There's every moment is right now. And the past is a memory, which gives me the experience to how to be here now or to move myself toward what I want in the future. But the future is just an idea and the past is a memory. And I can only ever experience life from right here and right now. And I found myself a lot recently as I've just been going through this new phase of self-discovery or just peeling away layers of that which is not me, putting down my phone and just being like, ugh, go away from me right now. I love everyone, but I'm not here right now if I'm doing this constantly. And so the dog who you met just before we got on has really been helping with that, especially because every time I get super serious, I'm focused. I need to do this right now. I'm working on this. It has to be now. The dog just pops up. He's like, hey, buddy, yeah, maybe a little playtime. And I was kind of resisting that at first. And within the past couple of months, I've really just broken down those walls and just been like, oh, is it playtime? 5 minutes of playtime? Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with dogs are such special creatures. I mean, just animals in general are such special creatures. But I think I miss having a dog. I would like to eventually have a dog. I imagine myself like being in a cabin in the woods with a dog and potentially a partner. We'll see if that happens.
I hold the same vision.
Yeah. Actually, you're probably more so living that vision, right? Do you even live in the woods? No?
I do not live in the woods. I live in a
okay.
medium-sized college town, like in southeast South Dakota. So
What's a
I
college that's close by?
the University of South Dakota.
Oh, okay. Nice, nice.
Yeah, that's like I get to go to the university gym, which is really nice. It's a huge outlet for me as it is for you.
Yeah, for
But it's
sure.
also been winter, like hard winter here for close to 6 months now. Like just saw the grass in my backyard this morning because it rained, and then the rain turned to snow, and now it's all covered with snow again. And so through
Yeah.
this winter, it's been a little bit harder to work out outside. And I know that that's a huge piece of what you do. Um,
Yeah.
just getting that sunlight on your body, in your eyes, I never understood how powerful it was for me, for us, until it's just gone for a while. And it can be kind of hard to deal with. But at this point, I
Totally.
know I'm thinking about how do I get back to the woods?
That's cool, man. Yeah. Yeah, it must be a trip to growing up in California majority of life to experience snow for 6 months.
It's different, but
Yeah.
it's humbling, and it will teach you to figure out what you're really trying to escape from is the experience that I have been having more and more recently. Every time I think like, I just need this, I need that right now. Why can't I have the outside world? Well, what are you trying to tell yourself through this process? Maybe it's go in.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
I spent a lot of time outside, and I feel like now is just as through the ebb and flow of life, like the time to go in for a while. And so it's been a very, very revealing winter. And when spring springs,
Mm.
I have a feeling me and this little doggy right here are not going to be inside very much.
Yeah, for sure. Probably go on some nice bike rides, probably go running and I'm sure he would like to run. Go
He
outside.
he he does love to run. He is quite the athlete, and he keeps me honest. I'm really excited to start running with him because I recently worked with a friend who is basically a fitness coach, and he taught me how to run for the first time in my life. And now, as a 35-year-old man, I've just learned how to run. And
Mm.
come on, bud, it's okay. You can back up. Thank you. He's gonna test everything I said right now and just try to make sure he's seen by the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm learning how to work with mobility and fitness at the same time because I was a big boy for my whole life, and losing weight and getting to where I am now has come with this whole new discovery of like what it means to just be in a body. And so to work on this project that we're both talking on right now, the human experience, I feel like I've lived multiple lives in my life, like many different lives, and it's quite a trip. And I guess that's really one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how many lives have you lived? Because sitting here talking to you now, I feel like we're completely different men than we ever used to be when we met as boys. How many different lives have
True.
you lived, Yoshino?
Well, I don't know how many lives I lived prior to living this life, but I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to come around to the idea of reincarnation and past life experience. That is starting to make more sense to me, although it's a very uh, it's not something you can really like tangibly grasp, right? But in this lifetime, I don't know. It's hard to say. Multiple. I've definitely lived way different iterations. From when we first met, which was in college, essentially, and so there's that life. which just seems so, it's just so interesting to kind of peel back those layers. That's when I first started getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
Mm.
when I was 21. That's when I picked up my camera. I was about 19. And I knew I wanted to be a photographer. Well, actually, I wanted to be a mixed martial artist and a photographer, but then I came to my senses with the mixed martial arts because that's a tough life, man. Like literally, physically, mentally. That's a hard decision. You have to really, really, really like to fight,
Mm.
and I just like to do it for to build character, essentially. But gosh, there's that life. There's a whole life when I was a child, when I was a skateboarder. I was going to the streets of San Jose, skateboarding. There was, the life of when I was a musician and I used to play shows and stuff. There was my life when I was a child. I was a gamer. Played lots of video games and stuff. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but definitely like I've been through a lot of different transitions in my life. I used to be married. I got divorced. I think that's like a big thing that transformed me from being like a boy to a man, is going through that suffering. And yeah, and life keeps evolving. I think the thing that we falsely believe societally is that life like life happens to you, like you're not like, you step into a career and then you do that career and maybe that career has different iterations or whatever, but essentially you're doing similar things, and you're relegated to that sort of like lifestyle because you chose when you were in your 20s that that's what you were going to do for the rest of your life. But life is a continually evolving thing. And I think the more that we listen to our instincts and our calling, whatever that calling may be, and callings always change too. So I think the more flexible that you can be, the more intuitive that you can be, probably the better off you'll be. Doesn't mean that there won't be suffering along the way, because there's many deaths that have to happen in order for you to grow, right? And there's a lot of things that I think that we have to accept along the way. Things may not work out the way that you plan. I was I moved from Los Angeles to Joshua Tree about a year and a half ago, and then me and my partner at the time broke up. I thought we were going to be living out in Joshua Tree, making a life together, essentially, right? And it didn't work out that way. And it's fine, right? And just life throws you punches, and you got to respond, and you got to roll with it, as a boxing metaphor.
Yeah.
But that's how things go, and it's actually very beautiful to be able to have all these experiences, and I think that we all can have a colorful range of experiences, but like I said, I think people think that and we're such social creatures that you see your neighbor and what they're doing and the type of life that they're living, and your friends, right? And it becomes this confirmation bias. And recently have been reading, I'm almost done with this book called Technosis. And he presented this idea. His name's Eric Davis. He's going to be on the podcast sometime soon, but he presents this idea of the consensus trance. And when I think of the consensus trance, immediately I go to George Romero and I think of, like Night of the Living Dead, like zombies, right? Like what is a creation of zombies, Or if you think of that film like They Live, if I'm remembering this correctly, he puts on the goggles or the glasses and he sees, everyone as skeletons, essentially in this kind of like, this consensus trance, or like the Matrix, right? There's a lot of these like film metaphors or fiction metaphors for this. But so what that tells me is like what what is the most important thing to me, right? Like, what type of life do I want to live? What do I want to explore in this life? And that will change over time, but I think this is the journey that I'm on right now, and we'll see what unfolds from that. I'll see, So
What's it like recording your podcast on the road? Your studio environment is changing. Have you had any humanizing moments when you're on the air with someone in the past?
humanizing, as in,
I
what
don't
do you mean
know,
by
like,
that?
you're staying in a hotel and next thing you know, the walls are shaking or whatever it might be, like I'm just kind of curious. eh, I always wanted to have a studio and now I have a studio, and now I sit in my studio sometimes and think about being on the road. And so again, like an exercise in being present, but a studio in my mind is a very controlled environment. And so when you are out there on the road and you're doing something like your podcast on the road, I suppose that there are variables that you can't control, like what we've been talking about for a little bit now. And I'm just kind of curious, like, I don't know, have you ever had like an embarrassing moment or a humanizing moment when you're talking to someone that you really care about, that you were just kind of like, oh shit, like, hey, if that makes
I see
sense.
what you mean. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I always thought it'd be really hilarious to, be on the road here and have like a serious conversation with someone, someone potentially that I don't know very well, and hire someone to like kidnap me during the interview, or to aggressively start stabbing me during the interview, and then I just have like, like blood squirts on the camera, and then they're just sitting in suspense and like, a disbelief, and they're just like, oh, what the fuck is going on? And then they don't hear back from me from like a month or two.
Oh my goodness.
I always thought that would be incredible, and then it happens right now to you. Like I hired someone to do this as I talk about it.
And then in a month, and scene.
Yeah, exactly. I always thought it'd be interesting to fake my death too, but I also thought that might be cruel. But I think in my sort of like sick, twisted, dark humor brain, I always think that I just think it'd be hilarious. Probably not in actuality, but anyways, going back to I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I think you just, if like I was recording in a cafe the other day, and actually my friend was interviewing me. He was my old assistant because I flew from San Francisco to Chicago. He lives in Chicago, picked me up, and then we recorded something. And it's a cafe. You're not in control of the environment at all. There's like all kinds of stuff going on. There's music in the background, but like, I don't know. Like when I was sitting there, there was like this Phoebe Bridgers song that came on, and I've been listening to a lot of Phoebe Bridgers. I think she's just really great. And it's just like these beautiful moments that get presented to you, right? And so like, uh, uh, I don't know, man. I think the more that we try to control things, probably the more anxiety and stress that we'll have. Because, it's like you just got to listen. You got to listen to your body. You got to listen to the environment. Some days like I'll want to work out twice in the day, but then my body's like, no, you're not working out twice in the day. I'm like, maybe I should just like take a walk, and
Right.
just work out once, take a walk. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. I think all these situations are exercises in which you can practice presentness, and acceptance. That's why I try to think, not saying I never have anxiety or anything. It's just I'm trying to live a more peaceful existence.
That's my exact goal at this time as well. I used to think that I wanted to be happy, and then I realized that happiness is a transitory state. It comes and goes mostly because of external situations, but peacefulness comes from your center, and it's something that you create. And so where I used to think I wanted to be happy, now I realize what I really want is peace. And there are moments and days where the peace is there. And then there are some days too where I feel myself kind of shift out of the center just a little bit, and was really for a period of time kind of beating myself up a little bit about it and being like, why are you doing this? What is this? Question, stress. But recently I started martial arts training as well. And my teacher like constantly like, relax. I started Kung Fu and Tai Chi. And so during Tai Chi especially, my Sifu's like, relax, your shoulders are so tense. And I'm sitting there going, oh, whoa, I didn't even realize that I was tense. How could I be holding on to this much tension without even realizing it? And so it's been really powerful for me in my own quest to find balance.
Yeah. I mean, I think, speaking to that sort of like tension, I mean, I took about a month off of boxing to rehab my shoulder. And I just started boxing at this gym over here. And I was recognizing, because I think, when you take that time off, your reactions are a little bit off. And also I was just really tense, like I was trying to hit the bag, like I'm trying to like kill the bag essentially. Right. And and then I had to like consciously tell myself, like when I was hitting the pads, like, like butter, I just said butter, it was basically just like be smooth like butter, be smooth like butter. And so I was like, okay. And then I just relaxed, and you expend a lot less energy too when you're just more relaxed. And also in a fighting sport, you want to be relaxed, and you want to, especially when you're like sparring someone, you want to actually be not emotionless necessarily, but you don't want your emotions, like you don't want to fight with aggression. You just want to be tactical. And and actually you have to be kind of kind to yourself in your head about it, because sometimes in my brain, like I'm like, okay, like, oh, I shouldn't have got hit there, I shouldn't have, like, I should have slipped, or I should have, whatever. And I'll think about that stuff, but then it takes me outside of my instincts. And so I think like this can be used as a metaphor in life, in a sense where it's like sometimes we get in our own way, we overthink things, we beat ourselves up. I have a tendency to beat myself up, and I can be very hard on myself. And really, where does that come from? It's like, for me, I think it's like an expectation, like this expectation that I should be something, or I want to be something, or I expect like greatness for myself, whatever that may mean, right? And it's all of these like these sort of invisible constructs that we build in our brains that only have weight because we allow them to have weight on us, right? And so, a good example of this, I think, is, so I like David Goggins. I do. I like him. But I think that comparing him, the way that for context, like people that don't know David Goggins, he's, he does like these ultra marathons. He's known as being like very aggressive and very masculine, masculine,
Stay hard.
Like, yeah, stay hard,
Stay hard.
Yeah, and when you read his books, it's because he's been through a lot of trauma, right? And this is his way of dealing with the trauma, right? So I think we have to be conscious of that. But then I look at someone like Courtney Dauwalter, and she's just like very silly. She runs like 240-mile ultra marathons. Her training is like she's like, I'm just gonna go out and start running. I mean, she's had like, like strict training before, but I think she's very Tao about her approach, and she's very like, she's like, oh yeah, I just like eat pizza and blah, blah, blah. I mean, she's very casual, right? And from a athletic standpoint, her and David Goggins can do kind of similar things, And Courtney Dauwalter is like at the top of her game. Like she beats like all of the categories, like the men's category and the women's, and she's a beast. But she is so calm. So I think of like kind of like split the middle between that, right? It's like I have certain tendencies for myself where I'm very like aggressive. You kind of have to be, like what like, my boxing coach used to tell me is he said you kind of have to have a little bit of a mean streak in you to box. And it's true. You do, like you have to, but with that being said, you have to know when to channel that. You need to know when to sort of like channel that aggression inside of you, right? But at the same time, like you also want to be calm. It's a very like yin and yang sort of a thing, right? And so that's where I'm trying to be, is more of like balanced, not trying to hide away the sort of like side of me that is, um, that is aggressive, or that deals with like darkness. A lot of my photography deals with a lot of heavy emotions and darkness, and I channel the underground in my photography. That's it helps me kind of like expend that energy too. But then also like move with grace. Like Tai Chi is probably way to do that. I don't practice Tai Chi personally, but I do my stretches and stuff. So I guess balance. Trying to move with the ebbs and flows. That's what I think about a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And it's enlightening to hear your perspective on it. I'm gonna have to look up Courtney. I'm familiar with Goggins, but I'm obsessed with what you just said about her attitude. I absolutely adore that, because I thought that's what I was for a long time. I thought that I was like this chill, zenned out guy. And then I realized very recently, within the last couple months, like how much tension I was really holding on to. And when I get downstairs, I have like a 100-pound heavy bag down in the basement here at the house and stuff. And I get down there, and when you said kill the bag, I really felt that, because for a long time I was trying to kill the bag. I was trying to punch holes in it. And at this point, I've been going down there and breathing, focusing on my breath. I put up some lines, so I'm doing different exercises, and it's just me. I don't have a coach down there, but the word in my head is little tappy, little tap, 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 tap. And so learning just to kind of find the flow and find the balance without the mental story that, like, if you're not killing the bag right now, you're not working out. Because this morning before we talked, I know you were working out, I was working out down there. I was down there for 45 minutes, shorter than I normally am. And I just had to do it to kind of get myself mentally ready for the day today. And I slowed down for whatever reason, just knowing I was going to get to talk to you today, just kind of helped me get out of this story I've been locked into of like, gotta kill it. And it's like, this workout is just a bonus workout because I'm going to do it again later today. So just like go slow, be calm, tap, tap, tap. And next thing you know, it's like 45 minutes later and I'm drenched in sweat. And I'm like, how did that even happen? I don't even understand what I just did, but it felt right. And so it's cool that we get to talk about this today, because it was a really beautiful experience. And now I'm working on not allowing the narrator upstairs to be like, oh, now it has to be like this all the time, It's just flowing.
I understand. I think like, the more that you gain experience, and also like, the people that teach you with the martial arts and stuff, like it requires a certain amount of presentness, and it requires a certain amount of relaxation, because like you will carry tension in your shoulders if you're really tense. You can tell too, like if someone, like the energy, once you can kind of get out of your head of like getting hit in the face and stuff. It took me about a year and a half to like be conscious of it and not be afraid of getting hit in the face and stuff.
I'm not there yet.
But it's like it's a practice. It's like something that you Like, I think a basic like human response generally is to like shy away, to guard yourself, right?
Mm.
So it's hard to train yourself to be able to like look at someone, because when you're sparring, you have to look at them the entire time and still guard yourself and not like look away, So there's a lot of these like fear responses that you kind of have to train out of you, right? And I mean, I think like going back to kind of like tying this all together with a nice little ribbon, there's a lot of things in life that you have to train out of you, a lot of these things from society that people tell you. I call them secondhand values. I got that from, where did I get that from? Christianity, probably.
Mm.
And just yeah, we have to be conscious of that, like everyone sort of like views life in their own way, with their own experiences and stuff. So we have to take everyone's advice with a bit of grain of salt. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you said something earlier as well. We've talked a little bit about death, and you brought up your photography, and that's something that I've noticed when I'm looking at the photos that you take with a camera, or the hybrid art that you do as a blend of AI art, and whatever your process is. I'm really curious because your art to me is beautiful. It speaks to me, but it's also very dark. I see a lot of fire, a lot of rebirth, and a lot of people confuse death with always being this scary thing. But when I think about death, I think about rebirth. And so I'm curious, what does your process look like? How do you decide what kind of art you're going to make? I know you said you do it for you now. And so how has that shift been, and what does your process look like?
I mean, I think my process is like very intuitive and instinctual. Whether I have a camera with me or not, or I have like a camera phone, because generally people carry phones with them. I usually do. Like, for some reason I'm really interested in like detritus, or detritus, however you pronounce that, and like just all this like shit that you find on the ground. A lot of it like advertisements. I took this photo of um the cigarette packet the other day, and it has like this open mouth with decayed teeth, and it says "you" on it in Portuguese. And I don't know, there's just something like very funny to me about that, and also strange and interesting. It's, there I've seen it all over the world, like in Thailand, and they have like this really aggressive, like sort of like, I don't know, neck tumor that someone got from, smoking cigarettes or something like that, right?
Mm.
Um yeah, I'm interested in like dead things on the ground. I think a lot of people have morbid curiosities. That's why taxidermy is um it's not very popular necessarily, but it's, something I think it's just embedded in the human psyche, to be fascinated with death. Or Dia de los Muertos is a holiday, Day of the Dead in Mexico. Um and I don't know, I guess I've never been afraid of death. Um And I'm not trying to say that from like a nihilistic point of view necessarily, but it's just not something that has ever like really uh, scared me, I guess. And if anything, it's, I do things that kind of welcome it in a way. I mean, you can get seriously hurt, and with fighting sports and stuff. Not that I try to like do hard sparring sessions all the time, because this is super important. The brain is like
Mm.
so important. You have to keep that intact. Um, but yeah, I think now I'm trying to like put more of a context into like the photographs. For instance, like I'll write a little passage or something in my experience why I took those photographs. I've been doing that recently as a practice. I journal all the time, like multiple times a day sometimes. And yeah, just trying to I mean it's all for me, but yeah, I'll share stuff out there. I was actually thinking about making a Substack too when talking with you about it. Um but yeah, just this is my way of just making sense of this human experience, if you
Yeah.
will.
I love that. I love that. And when I think about the human experience and like where we're at as a society on Earth, I think one of the reasons why the world is the way it is because people have been refusing to think about death. It's like the elephant in the room that unites us all, just as life does. But if we don't want to look it directly in the eye and say, like, I am not afraid, I know you're coming, which allows me to now live. Because I think, heck, a couple of years ago, when I was in the middle of my bicycle ride, I talked to you from a hotel room in Iowa, and we had a whole conversation about being afraid of death is to be afraid of life. And now what, like several years later, here it comes full circle. And
Yeah.
I do see that as an ever-present theme in your photography. And I personally love it. I think it's beautiful. And I am curious, how do you do what you do? How do you make these scenes and images? Like, is it okay to pull some stuff from your Instagram in
You can
post
do,
and
yeah, whatever. Yeah,
put
yeah,
it
yeah,
up
of
here?
course.
I
Of
would
course.
love
Yeah,
to
yeah.
show some of your art because there is just this
Of course.
otherworldliness to it. And at first, I didn't even know that some of it was Mid-Journey. Like, what do you feed into an application like Mid-Journey, and what are you putting in to get something out? And is the thing that you get out the final result, or are you doing more stuff to it after? I'm just
Oh yeah.
fascinated.
No, I always do more stuff to it afterwards. Um, I kind of look at them as like digital collages because I generally like paint new stuff into it or like mash multiple images together. Um, yeah, Midjourney has this really funny way of I don't know, the faces are always fucked up, which can be cool. But it's always like kind of off, you know. Um, so
Like an
yeah,
Aphex Twin album cover.
yeah, which is cool, which is cool. I dig Aphex Twin for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, actually, someone that listened to the podcast, to my podcast, he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Midjourney before?" This was like last summer, and I was like, "The fuck is Midjourney?" I'm like, "No, like what the fuck is this?" And then he's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of cinematographers and directors that are using it to like storyboard, or that's the context of what he was presenting it to me as." And then I saw some of the images and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I started experimenting with it and I was like, "Oh wow, this is really fascinating." And I mean, yeah, we're moving in that direction where artificial intelligence is going to be um readily available. And I mean it is, Chat GPT 4 just came out.
Mm.
And I mean I have a lot of mixed emotions about this stuff. Um, something in Technosis that Eric Davis talks about is that with new technologies, as even he was talking about Morse code. When Morse code came into existence, there was a lot of these ideologies about what he calls a tech utopian ideology, that the printing press is going to change everything for the better of humankind, and
Mm.
um, artificial intelligence is going to make everything so much easier, because it's like we've seen You probably have seen Wall-E before, right? That film.
I actually have not watched that movie, but I should.
It's good. It's really, really good and poignant in its own Pixar-y way. Um, but the big scene in that is like all the people are in these pods that have like 4 screens on it, and you can order anything, and it can do your hair, and you just basically everyone's obese, sitting in these fucking pods, and perhaps we're moving towards that, you know, which is not great if you think that way. But so I guess what I was trying to bring in with the AI stuff, it makes image making easier, but is making things easier better? Like sometimes the journey of like learning to have a perspective as a photographer and all these things, right? Maybe that's better, But I did use it for a project that's going to be coming out. And yeah, I think of just like different technologies uh in terms of like the use of experimenting with them. I've experimented with 3D printing, 3D scanning, using old phones, using old cell phones like to take photos, like using film, using VHS, like old technologies, newer technologies, AI. And I think that it makes sense because when I grew up, I grew up as only child, so I basically had to experiment with a bunch of stuff, and I was given the resources too as well. My parents bought me a drum set and guitar and skateboard, and and so it's always been in my process to experiment with different perspectives, different ways of living, different instruments, different types of equipment. So when AI art came into my consciousness, it made sense like that I would experiment with it, but for me, I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. It's just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Photography will always be there for me though. That's kind of like my cornerstone of in writing. Like I imagine like when I'm like 80, 90 years old, if I were to live that long, that I just write all the time. It's kind of like how I imagine, or like speak on a mic or something.
Right. What's as it comes to photography, what is your go-to camera setup? I know you're playing around with old phones and you've done so many different things. What kind of phone do you keep in your pocket, and what is your go-to handheld camera, just for anyone else who might be interested after
I can
seeing
get
your
them.
work? That would be amazing if you want
Do
to.
you want me to get it? Yeah, I'll get it here. I have like 3 cameras, or well, 3 cameras, including my phone that I use here. I'll show you real quick.
Cool.
Okay, so phone. I just have an iPhone XS.
Okay.
I'm too cheap to buy to buy anything better, and it works great. So I'll take photos with that sometimes. This is the camera I always carry around with me. This is a Ricoh GR. It's a little digital point and shoot camera. It has like a little flash.
Cool.
To be honest, I started carrying this around because Daido Moriyama uses it. I think he uses the film version. Now I think he uses the digital version. But this is the GR1, and I think they have like GR4 now. But I bought this used because I think old equipment is generally just as good. I think this is like 16 megapixels. I have the settings to where like I don't know if you can see this, but they're like everything is black and white.
Oh, cool.
And it shoots raw. So actually, I'm gonna take a photo of you. But um, and yeah, it just has like this cool like graininess to it. I dig this camera. And then I have this. This is now it's old. This is a Canon 5D Mark III.
Mm.
I like these better than the mirrorless cameras personally because, well, it has like a nice click to it. Wait, you know, can you hear
Can't
that?
hear it. No.
Let's see. Can you hear that a bit or no? You can't
No,
hear
I'm
it?
not hearing the shutter on it.
Oh, gotcha. Well, yeah, it has like a cool like little shutter sound, but I like the non-mirrorless, like the traditional DSLR setups because, well, at least with Canon, it looks more like film, and you can kind of like I add grain to it. I like to generally shoot. Well, I was gonna say I generally like to shoot at like ISO 1600, but that's not necessarily true. I generally add grain later. But I have my own process as to like, how I shoot and stuff. And actually on Saturday I'm gonna be shooting this like punk couple that I met in the park. It's like this,
Cool.
I think they're probably like 18 or so, and this one dude has this huge mohawk um and like I was passing him in the bathroom, like he was leaving and I was going into the bathroom. I just looked at him, and then as I was leaving, I was like, oh man, should I say something? Because like I don't know if people know how to speak English, and I don't know how to speak Portuguese. I just know how to speak some Spanish. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go and ask. And then so I went and asked. And I was like, do you speak English? And he's like, yeah, a little bit. And then I was like, look, I need to take portrait of you. I'm a professional photographer. Here's my Instagram. And yeah, so on Saturday I'm gonna take some cool photos of them in the park. So, but I want to do that more. Like I kind of can be a little shy about that. About shooting people just randomly, but there's this photographer Joel Marowitz who I really like, and he does that a lot. And I could imagine myself doing, like going up to people, taking some photos, having a conversation, and he's like in his 80s. Try to get him on the podcast sometime. I like his energy. He's a cool energy and great photographer. you know.
It seems like a really good way to just get to know human beings. You're just walking up to the guy with the mohawk and, having the cojones to say, like, I need to talk to you right now. Show him your pedigree. This is my Instagram, which is already like punk rock as F. And like to kind of get that validation and say, like, hey, do you want to do this? And have him say yes, that's got to be great. And like, who knows what kind of conversation that could lead to. I think that's
Totally.
beautiful. I aspire
Totally.
to that level of connection with people where you can just walk up to a total stranger and say, like, can I do this really intimate thing with you and then share it with the world? Like, do you want that? Some
Yeah.
people might say no, but I think most people would be honored to receive an invite like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I think it's just like from my standpoint, like I have to basically train that out of me, like the shyness to ask. And yeah, I think yeah, I think it's just a practice. Like if I see someone, that's an instinct, like listening to your instincts. It's like, I need to photograph you, like yeah, I've just been meeting some people on my travels, and I'm just like, I need to photograph you. Like, is it cool? Like if I, just random people I meet, people at the Airbnb I'm staying at, that's like staying in the other one, like, uh, and those are the things that I personally remember is these like very human moments, where like just this random like older couple, like in Guadalajara, when I was in Guadalajara, and like um I heard them like knocking on the door because they were trying to get into the Airbnb, and so I went downstairs and I let them in, and then we just started talking. They're from the United States, but they live in Baja California now,
Mm.
and they like sail like full time on a boat, and I don't know, just these random. I was actually thinking about starting a new podcast called "The People I Meet," and I did one recording with my Spanish teacher because she has a very, very interesting story where she got lost at sea for like 40 days.
Whoa!
She almost died. Yeah. Because she sailed. She's from España. She's from Spain, and her and her husband sailed across the Atlantic to I think they're trying to get to New Orleans.
Wow.
And yeah, so but then they ended up in Mexico, in Puerto Morelos, and but then they got lost at sea for like 40 days. She was telling me that like her and her husband, like did a ceremony for their death.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a ceremony for their death, like, and but then the how they got lost is that like, so there's this convergence zone out in the ocean where there's no wind, and if you're on a sailboat you need wind, right? So the way to get past that is you have a motor, but as soon as they got to the convergence zone the motor died. So then they were pretty fucked and almost died, but yeah, and they didn't. So
Oh man, that is fascinating. I implore you to please put this show out. I want to hear it. I am blown away by that story. I want to hear the full version of this story. This sounds good.
yeah,
That's
I'm gonna
terrifying
have to interview. I want to interview you for it actually, because with your journey across the United States, like that's something that I don't know if I have the cojones to do something like that. That's if anything, I would want to do the Pacific Crest Trail. That's what it's called, right? Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, and I definitely am going to be doing the Camino de Santiago.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't know. Like biking across the United States, that's amazing. You should write a book about that. Actually, I don't know if you already are, but
I did, and it's 700 pages. And,
holy shit, 700 pages?
That's why it doesn't really exist in the world. It just exists on my hard drive because it's too much.
But you can edit it down.
Yeah. I've been through a huge process with this book where I realized that a lot of the stuff that happened during that adventure was really just for me. It was for me to go from like the unsureness of boyhood to the knowing of manhood, of just knowing who you are at a level that you're okay to give yourself to the world and to be honest with yourself. Because when you're out there facing the world, you're really just facing yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself about whatever conditions you're in, about how you're feeling in order to stay alive. And the Pacific Crest Trail is actually something that I aspire to do as well. And so I find myself kind of giggling like, hey, who knows, maybe one day our lives will align to a certain point where we just look at each other and go like, hey, you want to do it? I've done my travels alone and I like doing that, but to try something like that in the future with someone like you, that would be,
dude, that would be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be really, really, really cool. And I'd love to like document that experience.
Yeah. Well, now it's out there, and of course I'll be thinking about it. You'll be thinking about it. We'll see what happens, because I have a feeling within the next year, I probably will no longer be in the state and the home and the studio, whatever that I'm in. I'm feeling the call to adventure has been bubbling up, and I'm ready to do something again, because for a while I allowed that bike tour to kind of define who I was. And I thought subconsciously, like, how could I ever top this thing that I did? And now my perspective on it is it's just kind of another thing, and it's in the past. And like, I needed to come off the road and to not be homeless anymore for a while, because I needed to go through the processing stage of that adventure, because I'd never gone on a bike tour before, and then COVID happened and I kind of lost everything and was just like, I don't know, I guess I'll ride my bike to New York. And people were like, what? You don't just do that? And then I did. And for a while I thought it made me special, and I thought like, I've got things figured out about life now because I did this. But the only thing I know is what I can remember. And that journey helped me to build experience that I can now remember, so that when I face myself again and again and again, the key is to remember, is to actually use the experience that you learned and earned to remember, so you don't fall into the same traps that you did while you were living it. But you said you don't think you could do it. You could do anything you set your mind to. I met some amazing inspirational people out there on the road. One woman, her name is Dee. She's going to come on the podcast and talk about her life, because she is an inspiring, beautifully amazing woman. She just ridden across the country 3 times after the age of 60, like with friends,
Wow.
alone, but mostly alone, because her bicycle is her tool to freedom in the world. And so I don't know, man. I mean, I look at you and I see things that you do, and I'm like, could I do that? And now these days I say, like, yeah, I could probably do anything that I want to. And I don't know. Now I just keep thinking about how cool it would be to do like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. And that lady Dee's husband did the entirety of the Pacific Crest Trail. And so that was kind of where that idea sparked for me back in 2020, because I met Rob, and Rob told me some funny stories about his time on the Pacific Crest Trail. And it sounds like I don't know if you could top that one. You probably could, but that's an adventure and a half right there. That'll show you what you're made of. And
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think I think that would be actually a pretty big challenge for me to do something like that. I think mainly, to be honest, mainly because of the showering, like the cleanliness. I have this thing where I need to be like clean and stuff, like I take like multiple showers a day and stuff. And I remember doing this hike, a couple-day hike in Iceland with one of my best friends. And I never shared the story with anyone, like publicly, or even privately, really. But anyways, we do this hike. I actually forgot the name of it, but anyways, it was really beautiful. And the night before, we so we get dropped off in like the late afternoon. There's still some sun out, and it's at the bottom of this like volcanic mountain region. Really beautiful. And right next to it is this huge waterfall, just an incredible waterfall. Like if you walked into it, you'd be crushed. It's huge. And I grabbed my water bottle and grabbed some water from it and drank from the stream, because it's just like that clean. And in Iceland in general, there's tons of waterfalls, but this one was really impressive. And so went there, we set up the tent, and immediately started raining like crazy. And like there was one person that we saw the next morning, and they were completely submerged in water. Like their whole tent was completely submerged. Ours started flooding, and then I was like, oh, this is great. Like this is a great way to start off this like multiple day trek, right? And so like we were there, and it started flooding in the middle of the night, and we were using our chamois to like squeeze water out of the tent. and I woke up, I was like super pissed off because I didn't sleep well. And then anyways, got everything dry. There's a hostel close by, and we just threw I threw the tent in the dryer and stuff, and anyway, so we started hiking, and as we were ascending, we went further and further in, and it started snowing. And we did not, he didn't, I didn't have like the proper clothes for snow. And thank God that we went to REI before and I got a North Face jacket, just like a thin North Face jacket. Otherwise, I've been dead probably. And so at the top of this mountain, we were going to camp there, but it was so windy and so snowy that we couldn't. And then thank God that they had at the top of this mountain, they have like these huts where, at the top of the hut, there's sleeps like 30 people or something like that, maybe less, 20 people. And so we stayed there, paid a little, it's like a little fee for the mat fee. And it's funny, everyone that was there had their socks all hanging up everywhere, and because everyone got wet, from the snow and the rain that turned to snow. And yeah, and then the next day we went out, trekked in the snow. And I'll never forget this scene, because as we were going over the hill, there was this beautiful opening with the clouds parting, the sun streaming through, and it was on the other side of where there's no snow, and you can see it. There's huge ravine, and it was so beautiful. But I just remember that experience, and I felt so dirty, didn't shower, and so I think going back to the Pacific Crest Trail, it'd be very hard for me, but I know I could do it, and it's actually something that I want to do, is not shower for multiple weeks or something like that, and be okay with that. You know what I mean?
Do you practice carrying baby wipes with you?
No, because I always shower.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
That was one of the things I learned on tour. I just carried a package of, I think I got them from REI, Sea to Summit wipes or whatever. I thought I was going to use them every day, and then I just figured out it didn't really matter to me personally that much. And so I think downstairs in my camping kit, I probably still have the old package of dried out Sea to Summit wipes that I used 2 or 3 of them. And there are times where I've been in situations where you're just I feel so disgusting, but I experienced a lot of kindness from people being taken in off the road, and during the pandemic, invited to sleep in people's houses in beds and stuff. And then they're like, oh, hey, there's a fresh towel in the bathroom. Go have a nice shower. But I am personally a guy that can go 5 days a week, whatever, without even caring about taking a shower. And I don't mind the natural smell of the body. It doesn't bother me at all. But I know other people do. And so I kind of shower for other people so I don't overpower them and whatnot. Because for me, I mean, I live alone with a dog, and I just work, and go play and work out and stuff. And I took a shower this morning because my hair was at DEFCON 5 levels of greasiness, and it was okay, it's time to take a shower today. But it always feels so great. And who knows? Maybe that's something to embrace a little bit, because I'm sure there are probably stretches of time when you're on that trail where you're being showered and experience at least.
Yeah. Or maybe you'll get some nice rain. But then that's another thing. It's your clothes get wet, and that's a whole nother thing to deal with. A show that I've been watching recently that I really like, that I've been really appreciating, is this show called Alone.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I've heard of it, but I've never actually watched it.
It's super good. I mean, I think it's good. It's just, it's the context of the show, for people that haven't heard of it, is there's about 10 people, I think, that they pick, at least this season that I'm watching, is 10 people. And, they get tested for their survival skills beforehand, so they're not just out there in the wild and die on the first day or something. And so there's 10 people that are picked, and this season that I'm watching is season 3, and it's in Patagonia. And these people basically, get on the boat, and then they get placed in like a certain part of Patagonia, generally next to like the river or the lake, and they just have to survive, and they just see how long they can survive, and I watch a show and I'm like, dang, they haven't eaten anything but berries and like grass for like a week and a half, and I'm sitting here with my big ass bowl of pasta and like eating these huge meals 3 times a day, right? And it just puts a lot of things in perspective, like the things that we take for granted, like, or the things that we worry about. And I watch that and I'm like, damn, these people are like out there, and they're so happy to catch one fish, you know? And it's such a humbling experience, like, and they're cutting it open and they have like the fish roe, like taken out from the guts, like there's a bunch of these like little fish sacks, and just eating it straight, like slurping it up. And I'm just like, oh man. I mean, I know that's like sushi basically, but still it's just like, it's all bloody with the guts and everything. And they're just so like grateful. And some of these people, like one dude looked emaciated, and it said like under the screen, it's like blah blah blah, lost 40 pounds in the past like 2 months.
Whoa.
Dude. And this guy was like, and he didn't look like fat or anything before. Like he was like pretty lean, but he just got like way leaner, like zero body fat. I was like, oh my God. It just puts things in perspective. Like we have so much, like kind of like so much privilege to just be to have like a roof over our heads, to have there's a lot of things to be really grateful for, and I think like when you live in a society that just like it's like achieve, 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 want, I need this, I need that. It trains your mind to think in that way, to where you have to constantly be striving for something or achieving something, or and that can play some really cruel put some cruel notions into the psyche, I think. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I was just having a conversation with a friend while we were letting our dogs play together in my backyard yesterday, talking about what she grew up on a farm in Ohio, and a cattle farm basically, and understands what it's like to have sows and cattle and animals that your family kills in order to eat. And there's a big difference between looking an animal that has a name in the eye and saying like, hey, I love you and thank you for the gift of life that you're giving to us. We've given you a good life, and now it's time to butcher you and say thank you and to eat you. And there's a big difference between that and just going to the meat store where everything is kindly laid out for you and packaged up, where you can disconnect yourself from the remembrance that this was a living being that you're eating the muscle fibers of to continue your own life. And when you were talking about them slurping down the fish roe and everything, I feel like I've never been in that situation, but a deep connection to that with water, because of my own experiences with like coming to death's doorstep from heat stroke and dehydration, and then getting that first sip of water and just like that slurp. I'll never forget how that feels to be like,
Yeah.
I am saved. I'm gonna live now, and thank you. I was
You had a situation like that where you were like suffering from crazy dehydration like that?
yeah, on the first day. I recently wrote about the experience of the first day of my bicycle tour. I went too far, too fast, bit off a little more than I could chew on
How far did you go?
I went like 55 miles, but
You had like 100 pounds on you, right?
I had more than that, man. I had like
Jeez,
probably
that's crazy.
75 pounds of body on me that is no longer here, like just fat. And and a bicycle that weighed probably about 250 pounds because I packed way too much stuff on it. And I
Holy
left from,
shit.
yeah, I left,
250 pounds?
dude, I couldn't even lift the thing up like myself. I could get the front wheel barely off the ground, but I started to realize really quickly I brought way too much stuff, but I had never done it before, so I had no idea. But
Dang.
yeah, I left during a record-breaking heat wave in Oregon from my friend's house in Grants Pass, Oregon, and his mom was like, "Are you sure you want to leave today, honey? It's pretty hot." And I was like, "If I don't leave now, I'm never gonna go." So I went, and then
Dang.
towards I got like 50 miles under my belt. I was like running out of water all over the place. I had no idea what I
Yikes.
was doing. And then I got to the base of the Cascade Mountains and was like, well, the place where I've decided I'm camping tonight on my map is like 5 miles that way. So I guess I got to go. And there's not that much climbing, maybe like 1,500 to 2,000 feet, which ultimately isn't that much in the grand scheme of mountain climbing. But for the first day after becoming dehydrated and not knowing, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I literally like started to black out on the way up the mountain, had to sit down and faded out to the point where I was like, I think this might actually be it for me. And I felt like I was in hell because this mountain had gorges up on the sides of it. I'll have to look at my map and figure out what highway it was again. But
Yeah.
I seriously was walking up like, is this really it? Like on the first day, I've killed myself on the first day. Put my head down and like clicked off for a second and came back to and was like, God help me. Like I literally prayed to God. I didn't even know what I believed in. And
Yeah.
send a man in a truck. And within like 2 minutes, a man in a truck during a global pandemic stopped and picked me up and brought me up to where I
Like
was
picked
going.
you up like a baby? Like baby
No,
Jesus?
no, his name was Randy. And
Randy Jesus.
I could barely talk. Randy Jesus picked me up. He was a rotund man, a former park ranger and pretty old. And he's like, boy, what the heck are you doing out here in the heat? And I was just like, just trying to get to the park. And he's like, oh, but that's where I'm going. I'm the old former park ranger, and I'm going to see the people who took
Dang.
over for me. So get in the truck. And they took me up, and I got up there, and I was peeing lime green, like a toxic pea looking color for like 2 days, man. But my buddy Dirt Rogers came and saved my life and brought Pedialyte and hot dogs and stuff because I had left from his house, and he drove out there to get me hydrated again because I didn't even know that I'm supposed to like drink salt water to hold the water down and whatnot. Like I was like a baby, and I still am in so many ways. I feel good about it now, though. And
yeah. Dang, that's gnarly.
That fish roe thing really struck me because I'm like, yeah. But I don't really want to have to repeat that again. The whole like, I don't know, there's got to be a way to do something like the PCT using the experience you have traveling in the past to say like, I accept I don't know everything. I don't know anything really, but I feel a little more comfortable going on an adventure like that. And there is something about doing things like that with a buddy, to have someone who's watching your back and you're watching them and you're helping see into each other's blind spots. So who knows what could happen one day.
What is I wonder if is there like a 2-month version of that we could do?
You could do anything you want, really.
That's true. You can get off at any point, right?
Yeah, you just pick your route, you pick the way that you want to do it, and hey, it might actually be something too that like starting off, do a section rather than mentally committing to the whole thing.
Yeah, I think there's something. Yeah, I would definitely need like a month and a half, 2 months. I think that would be perfect.
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking forward to doing the Camino de Santiago because it's like I think it's like 30 days or something like that, 300 miles, 300 miles, something like that. from the south of, well, you use multiple points, but the south of France to, I forget what part of Spain, but
That
yeah.
sounds beautiful. I actually wasn't aware of that one. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, that one's a famous one, man. It's very like a famous one in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that one's different too because like that one they have so many travelers that along the way there's different little towns where you can stay in.
Right.
And so it's not like what I imagine the Pacific Coast Trail is like, like you go and you camp, right? And you have like little drop off stations, right, for food. Like this one's like you go into the town and you can take like a shower, you can get like, wine. There's wine everywhere, and it's like kind of luxurious in that way. You might not be staying in like really nice places, but still it's like, get a shower, you can get food and yeah, and all that.
Better than a ditch.
Yeah, better than a ditch. Yeah, so
Sometimes
yeah.
a good night in a ditch is all you needed, and you didn't even know.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, I know that we're kind of coming up on our time here. And so what I would like to, I mean, I'd love to talk to you all day, but I know both of us have more work and things to do today. I'd like to ask you before we start to go here, is there anything that you're working on that you can talk about that you're excited to share, or is everything under the ropes right now, just a little hush hush?
It's a little bit under the ropes, a little bit hush hush, but well, there's a project that got released to the public for the artist Decoded tarot deck, and our deadline is not quite determined right now for various reasons with the publisher that I don't necessarily want to get into, but that's going to be coming out relatively soon. I guess publishing takes like a long time, just in general. So that's like the major project. I'm going to continue to do the podcast, and just constantly kind of doing project-based work for the time being, waiting for the next project, see what that may be. But yeah, I have a lot of, I've also been in this process of not sharing goals or anything. Like I've been thinking like it's probably better not to share goals with people, because you can just start producing and like and come to terms with it yourself, and then it just gets released to the public too. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with that stuff, but I'm constantly taking photos, experiencing things. I'm thinking about getting a GoPro and doing like little walking tours around different parts of the cities that I go to.
That's cool.
And like
GoPro
sharing
will.
like yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, GoPro's what?
Well, if you could figure out how to do like a Wi-Fi hotspot on your body, GoPro will allow you to go live right to social or whatever. If you ever wanted to do like a live walking tour of wherever you're at, but
Oh, that's cool.
I
That's
love that
cool.
idea. I used to watch this guy on YouTube, Terry something, and he would go live on bicycle rides in different cities. He's like from New York or something, and he's
That's
like a
cool.
savage cyclist, and he goes live from a GoPro. And I don't know, he did like a whole thing about what his setup looks like, but
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man. Yeah. Yeah, I there's something like there's this I think I forget, there's like the Scandinavian TV station that I heard about that's called Slow TV.
Mhm.
And some of the episodes, like one of the episodes, I think I heard about this, on like Hidden Brain on the podcast. I think it was Hidden Brain. And it's just like 24 hours of like a train moving, like on the countryside or whatever. And there's something interesting about that. Just like the video of like very mundane things. I mean, on YouTube they have like a bunch of these walking tours like of different cities and stuff like that. And I don't sit there and like watch the whole thing, but I could imagine like, you know, someone at their desk working and then they have like, you know, they have it on the other screen, you know, and just something is very comforting about that. Or I'm curious psychologically what that may be, like, you know, why people like ASMR, for instance, or, you know, like there's these these videos of like people eating, you know, like noodles or something, and it's just like you're watching a video of someone eating like, but I mean, then I think like, well, what does that say really about society, like, in, you know, technology and how technology changes our human interactions and communication, right? Like,
Mm.
because essentially it's you're simulating the experience of like going to a place, or you know, you're simulating the experience of like eating with someone, you know, by watching them on YouTube eat their noodles or whatever, right? And so something about that kind of makes me sad a little bit too. Do you ever think about this?
It makes me like a little bit uncomfortable, but a little bit sad, like you said. And then also, I'm absolutely fascinated with the ASMR trend because it's huge. I recently started doing TikTok for a client, and it's my
Oh,
first time ever in the world of digital marketing as a profession, doing TikTok, and I'm blown away by the amount of ASMR stuff on there and on YouTube. But the whole like mukbang videos, slurping down noodles and stuff, I don't like to hear those sounds. It's not pleasing to
me
me.
either. Me either.
But it
Yeah.
also reminds me of like hanging out with my grandmother who's no longer with me for some reason. And I feel like there's this evocative nostalgia and connection that comes because I've lived alone for a really long time and I have a dog who keeps me company. After my last dog died, I lived alone for like 2.5 years. Well, not alone, I was all over the place for a while, but was experiencing the world alone for a while. And when I got back into a home, when I moved to South Dakota, there was a 6-month period before I got the dog. And at first I was like, okay, I got a lot of things to process. And I started to kind of come down from that high. And then I started to feel a little bit lonely for the first time in a long time. And I can at least appreciate how if you're having dinner alone and you're not okay with just being alone and breathing and thinking or not thinking, just being where you are, enjoying your food, maybe it would feel really good to have someone eating with you. And I suppose that, like, I don't know, it's you never really know what's going to hit. And I'm looking out at the trends of what's going on in the world, just thinking, like, really, that's wild. But millions of people are interested in it. So there's something to it. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think is really the core driver that pulls people in and captures their attention through something like that? It's fascinating.
Well, I think, I mean, we're all such social creatures
Mm.
that, um, I mean, yeah, it could be, you know, you know, what's interesting about like the advent of these like advanced technologies, um, is that, you know, a lot of these social media companies, uh, proselytize, is that the right word? Proselytize, like you know, like basically profess that like, oh, you know, like all this technology is going to make us more connected and blah blah blah, right?
Mm.
But do you really see that? Like, yes, there's these advanced technologies such as like Zoom, right? We're talking on Zoom. You're in South Dakota, I'm in Curitiba, Brazil, right?
Mhm.
That's like that's awesome. That's cool. Like, and we get to talk and have this conversation. And but you know, human beings inherently have, like I said, we're such social creatures that it's like there's that saying, like, a comparison is the thief of joy. And now, instead of comparing yourself to, like, your neighbor, because you and I both grew up in a time, where millennials, we grew up in a time when social media didn't exist, like when we were growing up, right? And so I think how hard it is for younger people than us to grow up in a way where it's always been there, right? And maybe they're not even conscious of that shift, right?
Mm.
And it's hard to, like, navigate a lot of things. And I think that, there's the evidence is in the statistics. I don't have all of them on me right now, but I was watching this. Oh gosh, I was watching this. I think it was on National Geographic or something like that, where it was saying that, people like Gen Zers, essentially, like, you know they're not holding stable jobs, and they're not, what's it called, and they're not, like, learning how to drive, and they're staying home, a lot more than, like, people of our generation. Um and I mean, I do see that, the younger generation, but it's a lot of, like, hard things to navigate, you know like, imagine, like, constantly being on TikTok, for instance, all the time. It puts something into your brain where you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, and constantly comparing yourself to other people is a very hard road to go down. You know.
And to be born into this world now, I've heard stories from younger individuals, kids who are trying to learn how to be a kid because their friend has more Instagram followers than them, and they're like 10 years old. That's not a natural thing. And to
Yeah,
live that
it's like
life.
yeah. No, go on. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I would just to be born into that, the programming of comparative views at the world, and it just adds a whole nother level to the game of life of what you need to learn how to unlearn as an adult.
Yeah,
Kids these days
totally.
are expressing depression and anxiety and need medication and whatnot at such a level.
Yeah,
Maybe that's where it stems from. Maybe
totally.
that game of looking out and saying, oh, if only I was that, then I could be happy. Maybe it's really just if only I was me, then I could be at peace. And
Mhm.
what better way than to try to connect with kids as early as possible? So, I mean, I aspire to be a father one day so that I could teach my son or daughter or whoever what it means to be, to teach them that it's okay to be yourself. And that's what I wrote about last week, just being yourself. And I have found the practice of writing to be a very beneficial thing. I know you said earlier, just I would sit and write all day. That's what I like to
Yeah.
do too, because I heard this quote once that was like, "Read to learn, write to understand." And I feel like I find myself reading a lot again and comparing myself to characters or comparing myself to whatever. But then through the process of writing is where you really understand who you are.
Yeah, I agree with
Living,
that.
process of living. But if you're living a cool story anyway, then writing is easy because you could write some beautiful journal entries today just based on your observations of what you're seeing out in the tropical world with the tropical birds and the punk rockers walking through the park. There's
Yeah.
observations that if you're just like sitting on your couch watching the latest thing on Netflix and eating Twinkies, you're probably not feeling fulfilled enough to sit down and write about it. And if you're scrolling Instagram all day, all you're going to do is compare yourself to all the other people who do look like they're living an exciting life. So I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean,
Must
I
be
think
tough.
that, I mean, we can all live exciting lives to in our own ways, right? Like, I think, the thing is people just tend to get comfortable. And like when I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, I got so comfortable, like, um, there's so many parts of Los Angeles that I never discovered because, I would do like this kind of the same things, the same routine, but I could have went exploring, like in that city. And um, so I think, even if you're in the even like if you're in the city, you don't have the resources to go travel all the time. Um, you can explore like the city and find like nuanced things, like go to new bars, or go to new I don't know, new places to eat, and or just go to the park and like observe like squirrels on the ground, or little birds or something, and write about them. Like, I don't, like like life can be very peaceful and simple, and filled with a lot of joy. I think we just get too comfortable. Like people get really comfortable in relationships and then forget that that person's like means something to them. That's but we are in control of how, like, what our perspective is on those situations.
Mm.
Right? Even if you don't feel like it, like you can have a good attitude about like the way that you live your life.
Yeah, I think about the narrator all the time. Is the narrator serving you or a detriment to you? Is your narrator telling the story of you that you want it to? And also, how do you get it to shut the fuck up sometimes? And maybe just sitting down and doing nothing and just breathing for a little bit helps, because I think what I've observed a lot is that within myself and in every living human being, the narrator is who's creating your reality, and you can tell yourself whatever you want, and it's going to be true. And so this is one of the reasons why I love you, man. You have this energy of curiosity about you, and I think it comes through in the work that you share, in when you speak. And that curiosity is how I feel too. And so I feel an alignment there, where life is fascinating, and the fact that we're here in these bodily vehicles and we're all tapped into this force that allows us to experience the world is this major common ground, that like, oh, that guy looks different than me and that lady looks different than me, so we must be different. Well, we are different right now, but we're also the same. And it's just endlessly fascinating to see what people do with their time, because I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of the time billionaire, that if you have more than 1 billion seconds left, you're a time billionaire. And
No,
time is the
I'm not
most
familiar
valuable.
with that.
Oh, it's a Tim Ferriss concept. And check it out. The time billionaire. I think about it all the time now, because I've realized the older I've gotten that time is my most valuable asset. And I know that I've squandered and wasted a lot of it in the past. And I've just kind of gotten to a point in my life where I'm like, no more wasting time. Cherish the time that you have. Everything else is exchangeable. And so where you apply your time is what really matters. And I have found my own narrator and my own energy level to be a lot more healthy when I'm focused on how I spend my time.
Totally. I mean, I think, it's very good to be intentional with the time, but I also think it's like there is a balance there too, because what if you think that you're like, oh, I'm wasting my time now, just wasting it, it's wasting away, right? And it creates this sort of anxiety, but it's really just a mental construct that you have in your head about like what is wasting time, right? Like maybe, I mean, since I've been in Curitiba, like I've been cooking a lot. Some day, like yesterday, I cooked like almost all day aside from train. Basically, I trained and I cooked all day. And like, but I just was so I just felt so good about like, oh, I'm cooking like all these meals that I'm like, gonna nourish my body with. And, like, I don't know, perhaps when I was in LA, I might have thought like my day was wasted and I didn't, you know what I mean? And I don't feel that way. Not that, I don't encounter anxiety or anything, but like I said, I'm trying to like actively like train myself, I guess, to like live a much more intentional, like peaceful life, you know?
Mm.
Keep to the simple, as like the Buddhists believe.
I too am a person that will cook all day. I, I'll bring my
Yeah.
computer, I'll bring my laptop down into the kitchen, and like my laptop will sit on top of the refrigerator so that I can cook and then bounce back over and do something if needed or whatever. But I will work
Yeah.
extra and work into the night on some days so that I can free up a block of
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 hours to cook and do it right. And
Yeah.
there's something very beautiful about connecting with your food, because
Totally. Yeah.
I'm sure people share your food and tell you how amazing it is because of the intention you put into it. And you just go to a restaurant and some guy's like stewing over a split up with his significant other, or just doesn't like their boss because they feel like they don't get paid enough or whatever, and then they're cooking your food. That energy goes into your food and then you ingest
I was
it.
think I was thinking about that the other day actually,
Uh,
because like in Sao Paulo, I use Rappi and iFood, which are like basically Uber Eats. Like
okay.
I use it way more than I was comfortable with because it's so damn cheap. Brazil is very cheap compared to things in the United States.
Mm.
Like I get like a whole thing of sushi for like $7 with delivery and tip.
Whoa.
Like 20 pieces of sushi. It's
Holy
kind of
cow.
it's nuts. So I took advantage of that. But I was thinking about that. I was like, man, this doesn't feel good. Like I don't like just like there's a joy in like cooking your own food and like being intentional with that and like um yeah, and I think like convenience is not always like going back to like what we were talking about, just because things are convenient, it's not doesn't make it better, right? It's like,
Amen, bro.
and that's the thing that I have an issue with a lot of these advanced technologies. It's like just because ChatGPT can like write for you essentially doesn't mean that you should use it all the time. You know what I mean? Like there's something beautiful about taking the time to express something, right? And um yeah. So yeah, I guess you got to do hard things, Like I don't want to go out there all the time and work out. Like some days I'm just like, man, fuck this. I don't want to fucking go out there and work out. Like I don't want to do another, couple hundred, I don't know, push-ups and pull-ups or whatever. But there's something beautiful about like the building of character and like, I used to tell my workout partner, one of my workout partners, I used to tell him like no one can take this away from you. Like the work you put into this, like no one could take that away from you, and that it builds character. So,
Mm.
and that it's like but some people aren't after that. I am. I like that. I like building character.
So is that what you tell yourself on those days where you don't feel motivated? You've done 200 pull-ups the day before and every little ligament in your back is kind of like, oh, give me a break. But you're going to do more pull-ups anyway, whatever it is. What do you tell yourself in that moment where that comfort, the side of you that wants comfort and says like, not today, I just want to be comfortable, I just want to relax today? How do you break
Yeah,
through
yeah.
that resistance?
Well, okay, so yeah, I think it's very important to listen to your body. So if you did a bunch of those pull-ups and your back is on fire the next day, you probably shouldn't be doing more pull-ups. You know what I mean? Like, so there is that sort of thing within the brain where it's like, is this my ego, or am I going to actually benefit from doing more? You know what I mean? So it's like there's a fine line with that, right? And you know, like on those days, maybe I would be like, okay, well, my back's on fire. I'm gonna go run instead. And so, and I think for me, I have a tendency to like want to push myself more and more and more and more. Like I worked out this morning and I've been contemplating, I'm like, should I go box today? You know, like tonight. But that's just kind of how I've wired myself now, is to where like I don't know, there's something like really freeing in a way where like you just let your body move, and you know, like and I really like it. But on anyways, going back to it, on the days where I like, man, I don't want to do this, you know, like let's say I don't want to run, I'm like, I'm just gonna put my shoes on and go out there. Maybe I'll run really slow, but fuck it, I'm just gonna go and run, and let's see how far I can get. And at the end of it, like if I don't meet a certain expectation, like a general run for me would be like 5-7 miles. I'm like, okay, well, if my body feels like so tired that I can't hit that, then yeah, that's okay, you know, because I have a tendency to be hard on myself, you know, and I'll stew over it, like over the course of the day. I'm like, you only ran 4 miles, you fucking piece of shit. I mean, maybe not to that extent, right? But like, you know, I'll stew over this stuff, and I guess like going into the more like wanting to be more peaceful, it's like I kind of have to just be like, no, it's okay. Like, you know, you gave it your best. Fight another day.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the example, the David Goggins and Courtney Dauwalter examples, right? David Goggins' knees are fucked. His knees are so fucked, and he talks about it in his book, and like his newest book. Courtney Dauwalter, I mean, I'm sure she's had injuries and stuff, but I think she's pretty fine with her body and stuff. So it's like, where do you find the balance between like pushing yourself enough and like not to where it kind of like draws out like a lot of how do I say, or like does a lot of damage to your body? Like you can look at like Ronnie Coleman. Like Ronnie Coleman, I mean, he can barely move. You know, he was like one of the biggest bodybuilders in the world at one point. So
that poor guy is in excruciating pain every day he wakes up in his life. I'm kind of fascinated by Ronnie Coleman. I don't know tons about him, but growing up working in bike shops for a long time, the next door beautiful friend named John, who helped me change my life from a young age, just they had pictures in this bodybuilding supplement shop, and Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and these guys. I don't know what Jay Cutler's up to these days, but I've looked a little bit at Ronnie Coleman, and he's a very beautiful man. He has so many amazing, beautiful things to say. And it's incredible to hear him speak, because to be a person with as much physical pain as he lives with every single day, to still have beauty in your heart to share with the world is incredible, because I know a lot of people do live with great physical pain, and that changes how they treat themselves and how they treat the world, because that can be debilitating. But
totally,
I am going through my own process of like, never had muscles on my upper body ever in my life. And now I'm learning how to maintain strength and how to build it. And there comes periods where I know I've pushed it too hard. And I know I'm just like, I have to shift gears here. Otherwise I'm going to completely hurt myself or something. And so, what you said about listening to your body is something I've been really practicing a lot, and just letting myself know, like, it's okay, dude. You don't have to keep thrashing this one thing and telling yourself it's the only way. Like, mobility is just important as strength training. You got to balance things out. And so some days I just have to do mobility and do some running, or what you were talking about was a really good way to balance it out. Do you have a preferred running shoe? Do you have like a go-to shoe for running?
Right now I'm running in here. I'll just get it for you. I like to experiment with different running shoes, and I always like to get my running shoes from Fleet Feet. I'm putting this out there because their customer service is amazing, and so whenever I'm in the States, I always get my running shoes from Fleet Feet. I'll show you real quick.
Cool.
Right now I'm running in these Brooks Glycerin 2.0s. These ones.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, I like. Yeah.
Cool.
So I try to. The reason why I brought Fleet Feet up is like, is that their customer service is so good that I always just go with the recommendations. Like, I'll be like, oh, have you tried this? And so like prior to this, I was running in like the Hoka Cliftons.
Yep.
Clifton 8s, and then prior to that, I was running a New Balance, the 1080 V12. But shoes are super important with running, man. Like, getting the right shoes, making sure like it supports your arch and stuff, like getting insoles if needed. Yeah, but yeah, I definitely like running. Yeah, I haven't ran a marathon yet, but most I've ran in a setting is 15 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never run a marathon. I did end up walking one on a whim in San Francisco, like right after my dog Tucker died. I just had gotten a new pair of Hoka Toa boots, and
Nice.
I have a buddy that I talk to every Friday, kind of like our own, what you called a mastermind call one time, kind of that type of thing. And we were just talking one day, and I'm out walking, and I think I got like 15 miles into the walk and was like, hey, how far is the marathon? I think I'm going to do that today. I'm just going to keep going. And it did it. It was a wild day. It was very wild.
How'd you feel at the end?
Very tired.
Like, next day.
The tendons in my legs and my Achilles heels were pretty sore.
Yeah.
And
were you heavier then?
I was way heavier then. I was probably I'm like 180 right now, 181. And I was probably about 235, 240 at that point.
Wow. What is the most that you've ever weighed? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm pretty sure it was about 300 pounds, but I never stepped on a scale once it got up that bad. The highest I ever saw on a scale, I think was like 279 or 280 pounds, somewhere around there. But I kept going. I kept getting bigger. And it was this moment I saw a picture of myself one time and was just like, oh my God, I'm way bigger than I even thought I was. And that was like a tough realization, but that was when it all started for me.
Man, I mean, you do what you want to do, but I think you got to put some book out, man. Like get it properly done with a publisher and stuff. No, for
it's kind of scary.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I don't know. You tell me about it. By the way, I can talk for a bit longer. Like,
okay, cool. I just I don't want to. You tell me.
Yeah.
I've got stuff to do later this afternoon, but
okay.
I don't have.
Do you mind if I use the restroom real quick though?
Dude, go for it. I'll use this opportunity to run a commercial break.
Okay, cool.
The Artist Decoded with Yoshino.
Yeah. All right, give me a second. I'll be right back.
Absolutely.
This podcast was brought to you by dogs. Look at this one. He's got beanie baby eyes. He's so sweet and soft and cuddly, and sometimes he lets you pet him. Moral of the story, go get one.
As you all can see from Yoshino stepping up and walking away, he has not been wearing pants for this entire interview, and neither have I. If you get a chance, you really got to go check him out on Instagram. Check him out on Spotify is where I listen to his podcast, The Artist Decoded. As you can hear, he's a well-spoken man. He's a well-traveled man. He's a very a smart and endearing man. And I appreciate him coming on the show. I appreciate his time. And if you ever get a chance, check out the artist Decoded, because he interviews a lot of well-known people. He was the #1 Apple podcast in the world, I believe, at some point. Yoshino, is it true that your show Artist Decoded was like the #1 Apple podcast? Do I remember that? I was running a little ad for you.
Oh, on the arts category, we've definitely been in the top 5 multiple times.
I remember that. That's cool.
Yeah, especially yeah. So
that
was cool.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. All right, so back from the restroom, not wearing pants. What's going on?
No pants.
Where were we at?
I never wear pants on the Zoom calls. I mean, you got party up top, or no, party below. I don't know.
Yeah.
whichever way you think is the party.
That would be funny to do like an entire podcast where the whole theme is when you come on the show, you're not allowed to wear pants.
it just changes the context of the conversation. It's like these two men are not wearing pantalones.
How close are they sitting?
Yeah. How close are their legs touching? That's very important to know.
Are you going to invite anyone you meet on the street in your travels to come and record a show with you? Is that on your list, or are you just taking photographs of people while you're out there?
Maybe not for Artist Decoded, because that's like a very specific thing. But like I was telling you, the podcast that I've been thinking about, the people I meet.
Yeah.
I was just, but I'm also thinking like, do I want to make another podcast? Or maybe, it's something I could just do with Anchor or something like that. But yeah. I do want to interview you though about your travels though.
Oh, anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to you about that stuff. From traveling, you find yourself. I found myself constantly saying like, this is my life. Like, so how did I get here? And I'm sure you could share a million moments that you've had of like, you have this realization, like, how did I get here? I couldn't even have imagined this for myself at some point in my life, yet here I am. And
totally.
It was hard to walk away from that. I mean, how do you feel when you come home from extensive traveling? How do you readjust to life not on the road? Because that was the hardest thing for me to grapple with personally.
I don't know, man. I don't think I've been out long enough. Give me a couple of years doing this, and then I'll know more. But essentially, I started doing this like 6 months ago, and I don't know, but I like doing this. Logistically speaking, it's pretty easy to do because places, like this apartment that I'm renting in Curitiba is through Airbnb, and it was like what, $500-600. Wait, 5-6. Maybe I'm at maybe like $400 a month, which is like nothing, like compared to when I was in the United States. In California and in Los Angeles, I had a loft. Well, I was also sharing, like, the downstairs was for our No Wave, for our studio, but it was like $2,500 a month. And it's like, and then if you cut that up, right? So let's say like I'm spending like anywhere between like $500 to $800 a month on rent, like places around the world, right? Maybe $500, $900 a month, right? I mean, that's like, if it's $900, it's about 2.5 months worth of rent that I would have paid in Los Angeles. But instead, I could just, go around the world and rent a place, and I can, have these different experiences and stuff. And, like, but, and like, now that we can like work remotely, I mean, anyone can do it really for the most part, right? And but anyways, talking about like readjusting, I don't know what that feels like yet, because I haven't really like, I don't know what I consider home now. Like everywhere, like home is where the heart is.
Right.
I don't know, yeah.
When you come back to the US, do you have a vehicle here?
I do, yeah.
Are you
But when I go back to
traveling?
Mhm.
Sorry, when did you fly to where you're at right now? Or how are you, how did you get where you are? And do you do exclusively like flight traveling, go to a destination, or do you travel in vehicles too? Like, I'm really fascinated by how other people travel. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this right now are probably aspire to do more traveling and don't know how. Like, what do I
Oh
pack?
yeah.
Well, how do I do it? So, like, what's your kind of workflow, if you will, for doing what you do here, for traveling?
Well, my packing workflow is I have like on Notion, I have like a thing where I like, before I went traveling, I knew I'm going to be gone for like 8 months. I put a whole list of stuff down. I honestly brought too much stuff because I brought like video cameras and things like that. I'm like, and going through the airport is like a fucking nightmare. But
Right.
uh but essentially, yeah. So I flew from San Francisco to Chicago to Sao Paulo, and that was a terrible flight. It's just like, being up for like 36 hours, 24 hours about, very little sleep. But so basically, like, I'll stay in a city for like a month. Well, Sao Paulo, I stayed there for 11 days, and then I came out here to Curitiba, and I'm just going to stay here for 7 weeks. Um, and then I think I might go do a month in Florianopolis, which is by the coast, closer to Uruguay. Um, I think I'll do that next, and then I just determine, like, about a month out where I'm going to stay and get the flight and like that kind of stuff. And where I'm gonna I do want to do a Patagonia trip where I rent a vehicle, like a van or something, and just drive through Patagonia for however long. And that's basically why I brought the video camera, is to do that. Yeah.
Is there something
So
in your travel pack that you absolutely cannot live without, that you find yourself going back to every time, and you're like, if I didn't have this, I would be fucked out here on the road? It's not your phone, not your wallet, like we all got those. It's just one thing in your pack that you would advise someone who is going on their own adventure for the first time to bring with them.
definitely bring a toothbrush.
Toothbrush.
Dental hygiene is very important.
Right.
Gosh. I mean, this might be a typical answer, but I think it'd be a laptop.
Mm.
A laptop is such a vital piece of equipment in this day and age. Um, say a toothbrush, a laptop. If I were to have a very minimal pack, like just a backpack, it'd be a laptop, my camera, probably this little guy, if it's a small backpack.
Mm.
A couple changes of clothes, and like, yeah, like a toothbrush and like Probably just that, you know. I did not pack that way though. I brought my fucking boxing gloves, my like multiple cameras, my Taylor, my mini guitar. Like I brought way too much stuff. It's a nightmare.
How do you carry all of that?
Well, I mean, the benefit of like that's what I'm saying when I go to the airport, it's a nightmare, right?
It's a whole scene.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, like I have to check in the suitcase, and it's like right there at 50 pounds. Like it's my backpack is crazy heavy because there's so much camera stuff in it. It's like a workout. I'm like exhausted after the flight. Like I just like brought too much stuff. Like it was but it's okay. When I was in Mexico, I didn't bring as much stuff. Just brought one backpack, but oh well. Yeah.
That's good advice, man. The toothbrush. Always have that.
Oh yeah. Once your teeth get messed up, man, that's a hard road to go down.
Yeah.
And people getting root canals and like all kinds of stuff. Dental hygiene is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So where did you say in Brazil exactly you are right now?
Curitiba.
And how?
No, Curitiba, or it's spelled Curitiba. People pronounce it either Curitiba or Curitiba. I've heard it both ways.
Okay.
There's a lot of fighting out here, a lot of fight schools, a lot of like elite MMA people are out here, and like elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
I did Jiu-Jitsu. I don't do it anymore because I tore my meniscus.
Okay.
My right knee, a bad tear. It was like it's called a bucket handle tear, where basically your meniscal tissue flaps over, and you have to like get surgery in it. They have to not open it up, but they do arthroscopic surgery, where they have a miniature camera and they had to flap it over and restitch it. But basically, I did jiu-jitsu from like 2008 till 2019.
Okay.
But I took a couple years here and there off. Otherwise, I would have been black belt by now. But jiu-jitsu is a hard sport, man. And the way that I trained it in the beginning was like fighting hard. Like every spar session, you go 100%. And that's a really bad way, like it's a bad way to train. That's a good way to get hurt. If you like, I've encountered, or I've, been taught by some like the best in the world. And like when you see their training methods, it's kind of like a lot of the Russian fighters, like they do light sparring a lot. Like there's this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner's name's Cobrina. He was the top Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in the world at one point. And he would show a move, and then he would have you visualize the move. Like, okay, so now like everyone close their eyes, and then like, okay, that your hand goes here and here, and you pass the guard this way. And like, it's very technical, which makes sense because he's like one of the best, right?
Right.
And so like when I first started training, like the people I train with, it's like always go hard. That's a good way to get hurt. And so that was my mentality in the beginning, being younger and stuff. And like it's not sustainable, man. Had too many injuries because of it. All my injuries are because of my ego. I only have myself to blame. So but I did jiu-jitsu about 10 years off and on. Now I box. I've been boxing for about 5 years. 5 years off and on. Yeah.
So are you finding boxing gyms in every different place that you go to and finding someone to box with? I mean, I know you said where you're at, you found a boxing gym, and
yeah.
What does that look like? You just walk in, you're like, hey, I'm traveling, I'm new in town, I'm looking for a gym to train at while I'm here.
Yeah. That looks like me walking in, everyone speaking Portuguese, and then I'm like, habla español, habla inglés. You know, like I'm like, do you speak Spanish or do you speak English? You know, and so it can kind of be funny because we have to talk like through Google Translate because I don't know Portuguese. And but you know, generally like a lot of these people are like really cool, you know. You'd think like it's be this machismo sort of like thing. And actually mostly I've encountered like some really, really awesome, like very humble and cool people. And like at the boxing gym I was training at in Mexico City, like I have a photo of them like all carrying me at the end of when I was leaving. Like, you know, like I'm sprawled out with a bunch of these dudes, you know, like and they're all carrying me. Like it was very cute, you know, and like there's a certain brotherlyhood and like camaraderie with that. Like, and I find that to be more of the case than like this sort of like really toxic environment, which is promoted in fighting like boxing and UFC and stuff. It's all spectacle, but it's all, I think people have to understand that's all spectacle because it sells, you know, it's the drama sells. And like, that's why like WWE is like so popularized, right? So this is drama, it's male drama, you know?
Yeah.
People are pretty cool, man. Like, especially if you don't come in with the energy like, oh, I'm the best, and I'm, you know, like I, you know, try to like posture. You know, everyone hates posturing. And like, you know, people know even if you don't speak the language or whatever, like, you know, you can tell when people are energetically posturing, trying to make themselves like uh seem a lot more important or seem a lot tougher than they are.
Yeah.
You know.
Being the biggest guy in the room doesn't mean you're the loudest.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the toughest.
All right.
You know.
No, yeah, I have never walked into a boxing gym, and I'm kind of in a place now where we don't have a boxing gym. I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I could find someone to train with. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently, but been doing the kung fu thing and having some fun with that. But I do desire to find someone to spar with, because
Yeah.
the very beginning of my journey into playing around with boxing and stuff like that, never about that. It was just about finding out what I'm capable of or just doing it for fitness or whatever. But
Yeah.
you grow and you evolve as you practice something. And so I do aspire to that.
Yeah. Well, the more that you like step into that art form, the more that you realize it's very technical. I mean, especially like if you want to be with a trainer that is very technical too, you know, like the reason why is that we're getting older, the more technical you are, the more that the more you're protected because you'll know when to move. And, you know, it's a game of like centimeters. Boxing, and it's like fast chess is what I consider it. Jiu-jitsu is like slow chess for the most part, especially when you're wearing gi because you can hold someone down,
Right.
you know. But
That's
like
fast.
just be I would suggest for you and everyone else out there if they're looking for a fighting gym or boxing gym, be very aware of the energy, and always leadership comes from the top down. So if the person that's in charge um is an asshole or very like machismo or like, you know, whatever, like that will resonate throughout the rest of the gym. And I've been in Brazilian jiu-jitsu like gyms and stuff where like um it's a very negative energy, you know, very um and I've been in boxing gyms where it's a very negative energy and stuff like that. So just be conscious of the energy and know that that's not the case. Like you don't have to be in that environment. You can be in an environment that's conducive for learning. That's better for you anyways because you're gonna know how to like if someone's teaching you technique, right? Like good technique, like eventually like all the other stuff will fall into place. If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
mentality is behind the technique anyway, right? And if you're learning from someone who's bringing a different kind of energy than what you're describing, the wrong kind of energy in this example, that I would think that would inform the technique in a way that maybe ultimately could get you kind of hurt.
Oh, totally. Yeah. You need to like in every situation, every situation, like when it comes to conversations or whatever, boxing is a form of conversation, just so you're punching someone and someone's punching you, right? It's a conversation. Like you need to know when to flip the on switch and flip it off, And at the end of the day, like there should be no negative energy between you and the other person. And, it's um at the end, like you should laugh or like, it's like hug. Like it's like that was awesome. Thanks for showing me, like kind of like, dancing with me essentially, right?
Right.
And like yeah, so I think fighting can actually be a very positive thing. Builds a lot of character and like it doesn't have to be machismo,
I heard a quote that like better boxer, better dancer, better boxer. Do you dance at all?
Oh God. I'm actually it's a psychological thing. I would like to dance. Like I think I'm just too in my head about that. I'm too in my head about it. Like I feel like I'm awkward or like whatever, But yeah, there's definitely probably something to that. Like if I let myself go a little bit, I'd probably be an okay dancer. But something psychologically, because dancing and boxing's all footwork.
Yeah.
You have to have good footwork to be a good boxer. So
Dancing's fun. I have this nice little open studio space here and a couple of monitors and a subwoofer for making music and stuff. And
yeah.
I've really enjoyed recently just like getting out of my head and turning up the music and just I'll dance in here, jump off the furniture. There's like a couch behind me back there and a table in front of it.
I see. Yeah.
I got the little 43-pound Labrador pit bull hybrid with me who is got the energy of 1,000 suns. And so he jumps up with me and we do like a ton of different stuff. And I find myself like falling on the ground laughing. And I would recommend it to anyone, whether you're boxing or not. Dance has been something that has been so fun for me. And
that's cool, man.
It's just like, I don't know, maybe it's still a little embarrassing to try to like film a video of you doing it and share it on the internet or something. But I have found myself downstairs hitting the bag and whatnot. And I'm like, oh man, I'm dancing right now, but I'm punching at the same time.
For sure. I mean, it definitely is that, like, you have to move your head. You have to, you know what I mean? Like I find, that's almost like my form of dancing because I do a lot of footwork and like a lot of, like understanding my distance from someone and, and that sort of a thing. And you have to have a partner, to spar, right? So,
yeah,
I'm sure that there's like fight gyms around like where you are if you're really curious about it. Just like I said, be conscious of the energy that's there, right? Like if it feels wrong, immediately get out of there. Like don't you have to you could just be like, hey, like I'm just here to check it out and just like observe people like even if you don't really know what people are doing, like is it like a good energy? Is you would know, right? Just take the time, just be like, hey, I'm looking for like a gym and blah blah blah. I just kind of want to like, is it cool if I watch?
right.
And and you can see it how they respond to you too. Like so
That's a good test. That seems like a really good test. Here, life is a little different here than I've ever experienced it. It's not a city, it's a town. And it's a medium-sized town. And so there's a university here and most of this town revolves around the university. And so there is a beautiful fitness center. They have a beautiful climbing wall and a kind of like a multi-purpose room. And so I'll have to look and see if there is any kind of boxing coach floating around. There just isn't like the facility here. You'd probably have to go 50 to 65 miles to find
Wow.
a
That's a
proper, like an actual gym that maybe is just a boxing gym. And so around here, it may look something like finding someone else who is a boxing coach that is willing to meet up with you at the gym in like the room or something, or during the summertime, just go to the park and work out there or whatever it would be. But I am intrigued, and you're inspiring the ever-looking heck out of me right now about that, because I don't want to sit at the same level forever. I want to continue elevating myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's good skills to have too, like just being able to like think under pressure too, you know, like instead of going to that flight response, you know, like you know, you have to like calm your brain down and have control of your heart rate, and like, you know, and that's something that I feel like people have to train. You know, it's scary. Like fighting people is scary. It's not a walk in the park, you know, like getting punched in the face and trying to like think, you know, as you're doing it and moving and like, you know, in a way where you're not going to get hit and stuff. Like it takes a while. It takes a while to like get that training within you, you know, and you also don't want to be. I mean, I've trained with some people, and I remember I was very specifically like probably in my late 20s, and this guy I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu over there, and he's a kickboxer, and he was one of the trainers over there, and he was like kind of saying like basically bragging how tough he was and stuff. And then I was noticing him talking, and he was like looking like this, like basically like accessing like a side of his brain, like trying to get a memory. And like he kept on doing that, and then his lip would flare up to the side a little bit every single time he was trying to like access these memories and thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, you might be tough, but to your detriment, man. Like you just you can't take that many shots, you know. Like your brain is basically like the texture of butter, and if it keeps on hitting up against that skull, you're going to be losing a bunch of brain cells and potentially get like CTE and stuff like that. And you know, so I think you have to be kind of humble too. You have to be definitely humble.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. And working with people that you trust to not try to
sure.
destroy you. It's
Yeah, totally.
You're giving the future of your life to someone at that point. You literally putting your ability to think in their hands. If they slam you too hard out of anger and frustration and give you brain damage, then the rest of your life is gonna look different.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You don't want to. I've been knocked out once, and that's when I didn't know what I was doing with boxing. Like we would, you know, throw on some gloves like at the jiu-jitsu gym, and there was this guy, he had a couple MMA fights, bigger than me, probably outweighed me about 25 pounds. And I've always been quick, but quickness without technique is just, you're just flailing.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're just like hitting the air. And like he hit me with this uppercut. And I just remember I woke up and I was in my own pool of blood, and I was concussed. And you know, like, I mean, to be fair, we probably shouldn't have been sparring, you know. But that's the ego, you know. I definitely learned a lesson that day. But you know, you don't want to. Basically, the lesson is you don't want to take too many of those. You don't want to be constantly knocked out, you know. doesn't really prove anything. Or you don't want to constantly knock people out, like, or maybe you do. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right, and I don't. But
Especially as we get older, dude, you got to protect that brain, man.
yeah,
Yeah, got to protect it.
absolutely. And I mean, diet is a huge part of that too. When I used to eat like crap, I thought like crap all the time, and
You're probably all foggy.
super foggy, super foggy, and then just inflammation in your body and your brain. I did, what was it? I came through Instagram into hearing about this woman named Courtney Hunt, and I had never heard of her before. Started listening to what she has to say. She's an OBGYN who is like, her life's mission is to help women especially make the healthiest babies possible. And I lost a lot of weight just by applying what she was talking about. And she's a huge advocate of ketosis and sunshine. I think her saying is ketosis and sunshine make a fun time. And through this winter, winters in South Dakota are difficult because the vitamin D window closes and the sun is at an angle from the end of November to the end of January, where you are no longer naturally synthesizing vitamin D through your eyeballs. And I can feel my own psychology change when the sun is no longer giving me everything that I need.
That's fascinating actually, because on Alone season 3 that I was telling you about, one of the guys, like, they positioned him, I guess, in a spot where like there was sun on the other side of the lake, but not sun where he was positioned. And so he was like crying about it at one point when he like traveled, like hiked like all the way up the hill where he was, and he felt sunlight for the first time in a couple weeks, and he was like crying, like he was like, thank God. Like, you just don't recognize like how much the sun helps your mood, and like, yeah, getting that vitamin D is like actually super important. It's like that's like another reason why, yeah, I like to work out outside, as opposed to working out in a gym. But also, it looks funny too, or not funny, but it is a little funny, I think, for me, because it's like, everyone's like doing traditional weightlifting, and then I'm doing like I don't know, like planches and like, these different like calisthenics techniques and stuff. And I think I just imagine, like, from the outside, people are like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" You know
Like
what I
when
mean?
you're in a gym.
When I'm in a gym, yeah, when I'm in a gym, like doing some of those, like doing like handstands against the wall, handstand holds, and like, or I bring my rings and I do muscle ups, to like half. I can't do a full iron cross, but I do like half iron crosses.
I saw a video of you doing that and I was like, oh, there we go. There we go.
You could, I mean, you should get some rings, man. Well, once it clears up, like the weather and stuff. Or you have rings, right?
I have TRX bands. So similar, but not the same as rings. And I need to continue building my strength to feel confident enough to try doing rings of any kind in a public setting. Because I'm still working on building like the core level of strength that the rings take. When I saw the video of you wherever you were at like a school or in a park or something on the rings, I was just like, dang. Wow.
Well, I'm a lot shorter than you too, so you have more of a wingspan. It is more difficult, like when you're taller. Like, how tall are you? Like 6'4"?
Like 6'3".
6'3". Yeah, I'm like, I tell people I'm 5'9", but I'm like more like 5'8.5". Kind of like Preston. Preston's like, yeah, I'm 5. But Preston says he's 5'8". I'm like, no, dude, you're like 5'5", man. Let's be honest. You're like 5'6", dude.
He's like 5'7.5".
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, But anyways, the point is like when you're taller, it is, if you're doing like something like an iron cross, it's like it's a lot more wingspan. Even if you're doing pull-ups are way harder because you have a lot further to travel than I do. You know.
I finally put in let's see. So if you were to step directly over this little banister right here, down where the top level of the house here goes down to the middle level, I put up a pull-up bar just made out of like plumbing equipment. And it's the first time I've ever had finally in my whole, I've only been doing pull-ups for like a year and a half, 2 years now in my life. And it's the first time I can finally do a dead hang and go from a complete dead hang to pulling up. And now I'm working on trying to get past that to do the muscle ups. I still have yet to achieve even a single muscle up yet. And so I'm very much green, but it feels good. I had a friend come and stay with me not this past September, but the one before. And it was right around the time I started going to the gym to seriously like lose the weight and get it off forever. And he's like, all right, let's do pull-ups. And I was like at that moment of embarrassment where I'm like, I know I can't do a pull-up right now. And he was very graceful, and we would keep going to the gym every day while he was here for a couple weeks or whatever. And by the time he left, I had just kept going and going and going. And I finally was like, I'm so close. And then like the day after he left, I did my first pull-up. And
that's awesome.
It was kind of bittersweet because I wanted him to be there too. But I'm really grateful for my friend Brandon, who, if left to my own devices back then, I probably wouldn't have done it because it was a little scary for me. And, I can see in myself the same mentality where when something presents a threat to the comfort zone, there's like this hurdle to jump over where you have to really commit to it and be like, yes, I am going to do this and nothing's going to stop me. And even with the something as simple as a pull-up, it can be a little scary thing. And I think a lot of people could probably identify with that. And so, in my life, I have to let go of stories in order to do it. And sometimes it helps to have a little extra push from a friend.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I couldn't do, or I didn't even attempt ring muscle ups. Ring muscle ups, I think, are actually easier because it's mostly technique than on a bar.
Okay.
Bar, it's a lot more power. But like ring muscle ups, was it last summer? Yeah. I was randomly working out at the park, met this guy, and we turned out to be like super good friends, and we worked out all the time. We would put like that whole summer, last summer, we put in like 3 hours a day, almost every single day, working out. We do like a 5 to 7 mile run and then hit the rings for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Like it was pretty wild. We pushed sleds. We would go to this. There was this high school that had this like 350-pound football sled. And we push at 100 yards down the field, stuff like that. Like, we were doing gnarly workouts. It was awesome. But he showed me how to do the ring muscle up, and I remember it took me a couple of months to get it because it's just so like technique focus. And but you'd surprise yourself, man. Like after resistance over time, like you do your first pull up, then you go do a couple more, and then you do a couple more, and like by that, like a couple months after I got my first one, I was doing like 5, 6 in a row, and like, I think it's very important to like understand like what you tell yourself, the narratives, right? The narratives that you put into your head about what you can and can't do. I mean, you see it in some of these fighters. Like I always watch. This is my form of entertainment. I always watch like the before fight week videos on the UFC, and just these guys have like this mentality. It's like this confidence and this mentality, and like they believe in themselves like so heavily. Like it's crazy. Like it's crazy how powerful the mind is to what you can and you can't accomplish, you know, what is possible, what is not, right? Like, yeah, think about that quite a bit, actually.
That's what I love about physical training. I feel like physical training has helped me move beyond mental barriers in every other aspect of my life, or almost every other aspect of my life. Because if you're used to, like you said really early on in our conversation, doing hard things, if you get used to doing that, then when hard things present themselves, it becomes like this: I've done this before, and I feel like I can at least give this thing that seems like it's outside of my comfort zone, that's way out of my comfort zone, at least give it a try, because I'm confident enough in my own ability because of all these other things. And then it just, at a certain point, it just translates to confidence. And people who lack confidence sometimes are lazy. And that's, not a judgment, but just an observation, because I see so much of my old self in that. And then at times too, when you get tired, and the thing about the ligaments in the back, man, I've been experiencing that from time to time, where it's like, I just lay down to stretch on the back and I'm like, oh man, every little muscle, there's muscles in there that I didn't even know existed. And right now I'm specifically targeting, like, what is it? The teres major,
Relax.
the
Yeah.
very, very deep armpit muscle right here. Like, I started building the minor right below it, but
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, didn't even know it was a thing, but I've always had tension there. And now I'm realizing, as layers of fat stripped away, dang, there's like entire muscle groups that just simply have never been worked out on my body. So I'm like a baby in that regard, starting from scratch.
And I think something that's important for you, like we were talking about mobility, and we're also talking about like strength training, is to also work on, there's this guy Saturno Movement on Instagram and like on YouTube, and he does a lot of these very minor muscle group exercises, like scapula pulls and scapula retraction and stuff like that. And like just like being conscious of like the minor muscle groups. That's what's good about like rings, even if you just like like do a like just hold yourself up on the rings, right? If you just sit there, hold yourself up, and over time, you get 5 seconds in, you get 10, then 30, 60, like,
right.
Like just having building like those really small muscle fibers. That's what's great, I think, about calisthenics. And that's what I've noticed, like with my body composition, and also just my strength in general, is that, when you're doing traditional weightlifting, you're working on what's called bully muscles, like your large muscle groups, right? With calisthenics, it's more focused on like, yes, like big pulls and stuff like that, but just holding yourself up, like on the rings, like will promote like more growth. That's why like a lot of these gymnasts are like jacked, and they're super fucking strong. And that strength translates into the gym. Like I'll go into the gym and I can, still bench. I've never been able to bench press that much, but like, I can still hit like 185 a couple times, and I only weigh 148 pounds, so like, but anyways, I think the minor muscle groups and the major muscle groups and the mobility and all of that, it's all important, stretching, all that stuff for longevity, super important.
I've been learning a lot. Well, my focus has been, as we talked about earlier, like balance, right? And in my own spiritual belief system, and I think about the yin yang, the divine masculine, divine feminine, and how they play in to form a whole. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how
no, I was gonna say, did you get that divine feminine, divine masculine thing from The Way of the Superior Man?
I've never read that
book.
No, I haven't read that one.
That was one that I read in my early 20s that I thought was positive.
Oh,
But
nice.
anyways.
I got that from the Kabbalion. Have you ever read the Kabbalion?
Yeah, I've read the Kabbalion multiple times. Yeah.
That kind
Yeah.
of at least originated from the Kabbalion for me, but I guess I kind of see the divine masculine side of fitness as like the crushing, penetrating, driving workouts, boxing, weightlifting, and then the mobility side, the stretch and the flow and the nurturing side of the body is equally as important. And I was recently in conversation with a friend talking about, oh yeah, I just got done with an hour worth of stretching or whatever, and he like yelled at me and was like, "Stretching's for idiots." And I'm just like, "Wait, what? You're not
Why?
joking right now?" I don't even know. I don't know what he was on about. It was kind of a wild call, which I won't lean into too hard just to give him some privacy, because Lord knows. But I just thought that was a strange thing. And then it made me realize too, I know you're on Twitter. I go on Twitter sometimes, and I've seen people really bag on stretching as like a thing that it's not necessary, it's just going to hurt you. But I think it's really important for balance, like within myself, being someone who's super prone to holding tension, especially in my shoulders. Having the time to sit and stretch and to work out all of those muscles that I'm building, because I hold tension there, and tension equals injuries eventually in the gym or on the playground or wherever you're working out. I do like to do pull-ups on various play structures all around town during the summertime. And when I go on road trips in my car, I always stop at rest stops looking for good pull-up spots now and stuff. And it just kind of turned into a game. So it's fun.
Nice.
But I know
awesome.
you take stretching very seriously too. Do you have like a serious flow that you go through that evolves over time, or do you just kind of focus on areas that you feel need to be targeted because there's tension there? Like, how do you do it?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I have my general stretches. I always do like the split, not a full split, but I'm pretty flexible. But like, where you split your legs and then you bring your elbows forward and you arch your back down like that.
Yeah.
I have like a series of stretches. I basically stretch about, I would say, minimum 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half a day. Always stretch in the morning, and I always stretch before workouts. Especially like these boxing workouts and stuff. But I also have injuries, like tore my meniscus. Like I feel that almost all the time, and it's necessary. So I have like PT, physical therapy like regimen that I I don't go like A to Z, like this one and this one, this one, this one. I kind of like flow with it in different patterns,
Right.
But I understand the technique, so I understand like what I need to do, and I listen to my body too. But I have like two physical therapists that I go to. One's in the Bay Area, and then one of them is my best friend, Robert Kirkland. I'm gonna shout him out there, and he went to school at Fullerton and did a 4-year program for athletic training that I think only like 10 people get administered to like a year. So it's like for like sports athletics or sports therapy. And so he gives me a bunch of like stretches and things I need to do, or he helped me with my shoulder probably from doing like I was doing calisthenics like every single day while I was in Mexico. And doing the same movements over and over and over can't be good sometimes. So yeah.
I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot from you over the years, and today my brain feels like it has had a workout just getting to converse with you. It's you're wonderful, Yoshino. I thank you because
Dude, you're wonderful too, man. We've known
I
each other a long time, man.
We've known each other
We
a
used to
long time.
we partied together quite a bit back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Back in the day.
come down there and visit my brother Preston, who I
Yeah.
got to give him a shout out too, man. He's been acting a long time and working hard, and he just got his first Lifetime movie just came out. And it's funny, of all places, like you would think you would start to make it in LA, but it was Oklahoma of all places for him, that where
Yeah.
his thing was filmed. And I watched it, and it was really cool to get to see him in that light. And he's
I
the
haven't seen it
original
yet.
connector. I'll send you a link to it. It's someone
Oh,
pirated
cool.
it. It's on YouTube.
Oh, it is.
It's
Oh,
fun,
cool.
man. It's fun.
Sweet.
It's Lifetime, so it is what it is. And we had a fun conversation about it. But for me, it's special because he's my brother. And for you, you guys live together. You guys have known each other and been friends for even
Long
longer than
time.
you and I have known each other, because he's who introduced us. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, I really appreciate you as an individual, just as a person, and I thank you for doing this and for coming on and having this conversation. I know we had said we were gonna try to keep it around an hour, and we've blown right through that.
I
And
know, huh? That's
I
fine.
think you're an absolutely fascinating man. I think you're well spoken and you have a good head and a good heart. And so I'm really, really pleased to get to share you through my project, because you have your own project and you're normally the one interviewing people. And so I really thank you for giving me some of your sacred time to come here and talk to me here, because this interviewing people is a new thing for me. I'm still getting comfortable with it. I'm still trying to figure out how to set up the lights. I got into this and I'm like, man, Yoshino's got beautiful lighting on his face right now, and I'm trying to
Oh,
figure
it's just
out.
window lighting,
He's sitting in a window, and I'm
Well,
in a darker studio.
actually, you have window light on your right side, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the layout is necessarily. Window light is very powerful. A lot of the photography that I did against black backdrops are with window light.
Oh,
Just directly
cool.
in front of the window, like a nice even light, or just like a big light source, like can really help. Like, um, I could send you some links to like some like inexpensive kind of like LED panels or something. There's
Cool.
like on Amazon you can get like some nice LED panels that have some even light and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The lighting up here is challenging because there's windows on the east and west side, but I'm like right in the middle of a
Hmm.
room that's basically like the entire length of this whole house. Downstairs is where the real lighting is. Beautiful natural lighting. So I'll do like a separate intro and outro for this show, and I'll
Yeah,
sit down in my like rocking chair down there,
I've
and
seen
it's
that. Yeah, yeah.
great natural lighting. But I'm kind of toying around with the idea. All my audio equipment's up here, and I don't really want to have to move it back and forth between
Well,
here and there. Just get a
yeah,
setup for
yeah,
downstairs and have it permanently live down there,
yeah.
and
Well, what I
start
was
doing
gonna
it down
say
there.
is you can just have like an LED panel, like camera left or camera right, whichever way you want to light it, and then just have a single LED panel and you'd be fine. Just something that's AC powered. Probably costs, I don't know, $150.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah, and you'd be set up, you'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I absolutely love doing this. I mean, you've been doing interviews with people for a long time. Is there something that has kept you going? Because every time I do one of these, I feel like I learn more about someone who I've known for a long time, but I learn more about myself and like how I want to be, but how I want to evolve. What keeps
Totally.
you coming back to it?
I guess it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier. It's a curiosity,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, I've been doing it almost 8 years now with my podcast. And, there's times when like I'm kind of like on a time where I'm not releasing a lot of podcasts right now. It's good that I don't have like, a slew of sponsors or something like that, in the sense that I'm not on a schedule,
Right.
but, um, But yeah, it's just like the curiosity, and like if people are out there and they want to get into podcasting for money or something, good luck, man. Because I know some people that have like some pretty popular podcasts, and it's difficult, So, and I mean, yeah, it's just like I like having conversations. I like understanding people, and the curiosity just keeps me going. I think curiosity in general just keeps me going in general. Like if I was very uncurious, maybe I would just be at home and Netflix, or be at home sitting on the couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix. You know what I mean? That's all I would do. I don't know.
Yeah. There is a time and place for that for sure, but it's
there is.
maybe
for
not
sure.
every day.
Yeah.
Maybe not every day.
Yeah, you got to be. I mean, people don't have to listen to me at all, but I think like you'll probably feel a lot better if you do some hard things. Work out hard, read difficult material.
Mm.
Maybe you might not understand it at that moment, but over time, as neuroplasticity works, you will start ingraining new principles like over time, right? And I think like we live in a culture that's very much rewards oriented, rewards based, and like striving specifically for rewards, you can sometimes forget about the journey, and the journey itself is a reward. Not to be like kind of cliche about it, but there's a lot of beauty in just like the process of cooking, the process of walking, process of discovering. That's kind of, I think, technology does a disservice to people, because instead of wondering about things, wondering is a big source of creativity. Wondering like, what is that building? What is that? What type of tree is that? And you have access to the information through your phone, but just because you have access to information doesn't necessarily, it benefits in a certain way, but like there's all sorts of things that you can all sorts of things that you can imagine and wonder, and there's a lot of beauty to appreciate without necessarily knowing what it's about all the time. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
We live in a time where information is instantly accessible, and now we talked about ChatGPT 4 earlier,
Yeah.
searching the internet in a different way, in a more active way.
Keebler.
In a world. Oh man, I debated whether or not to pull that up and ask you if I could read it on the air today, but I'll keep that between me and Preston for now. We'll do some fun.
Really?
We'll have to do something super fun with like with ChatGPT. You inspired it, man. You inspired it. I was just kind of on a break one day, and sometimes when I'm on like what I call a mental break, I look at Twitter, or look at the internet or whatever, and I just remembered you and I had a conversation about using ChatGPT, and so I went on there and just typed in like, write me a script for a movie trailer for a biopic film about Keebler the Elf, because the joke with my brother Preston, as we well know, is that we used to call him Keebler the Elf, and once he got super comfortable and confident in himself and realized it's just a joke, like we're all in on the joke now. And so I read it to him, I shared it with you, and it's so fun. And the fact that ChatGPT spit this out, now I feel like I kind of have to pull it up at least so we could where'd it go? I know I have ChatGPT.
Well, no, just do it. Just do it. Just do the voices and stuff. I want to see it.
Let me see if I can. Okay, I gotta find my login for ChatGPT real quick because it logged me out. But I'll do it. I'll do it for you.
Okay,
we'll do it for the world.
You're good. You're good at making voices too. I was like, man, you should do this on the side or something, like get an agent and like do voices.
I would love to do that, man. I would love to record audiobooks. I would love to record like movie trailers. I guess my question is like, how do I get an agent for that? I have
just
yeah,
networking. Yeah, just networking.
networking.
Well, I mean, as which sounds like an easy task, but I mean, there's people that have been in Hollywood for so long trying to get these roles for like speaking, like voiceover gigs and stuff, and
Right.
it's difficult. Yeah, I mean, I don't know from personally, but I just know from other people's experiences. But it is cool seeing like knowing people over the course of time. Like a couple of my buddies, my friend Joseph Lee and my friend Raymond Lee, not related, but Raymond was just on Top Gun, and he was also in Quantum Leap. I just had him on the podcast, and my buddy Joey, he's in the show called Beef, which is on Netflix, and he was in Picard.
Cool.
New Star Trek show. Yeah, it's cool to see like people that you've known for a while like starting to succeed, because and acting that's tough, man. It's a real
Right.
tough job.
And you got to give your whole self to it. And
People are going to think you're crazy for a while.
Absolutely. I agree. People, I got this weird idea in my head a while back that I had gotten some feedback from people that made me feel like they thought I was crazy. And for a period of time, I started giving way too much space in my mind to their comments and actually kind of took them personally, which is something I don't normally do. And then I started to realize I was kind of starting to actually feel crazy because you kind of like become what you think other people think you are. So if you just cut out the middleman of that and just be yourself without the fear, then I feel a lot better since I started doing that. But totally. I did find this script. If you want me to read it, I'm actually really excited to do that.
Okay, yeah. Do it.
We've been going so long, I ran out of water and I have some in just the other room. So let me fill up my water cup because I'm going to need it, especially when it comes to do the narrator voice.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
10 seconds.
Do your thing.
Do what?
I said, no, yeah, do your thing. Do your thing. It's all good. Yeah. We're now on a commercial break. The dog is following Sean into the room. He's wondering, Daddy, where are you? Oh, wait. You're coming back from the water. Look at that big bottle of water.
All right. So
I was narrating the experience of what your dog. I was like, Sean's dog is following him, wondering, Daddy, what are you doing? What are you doing, Daddy?
You're gonna read this one again?
Yeah. Before you read this, I wanted to say, so like I don't know, I'm just like enamored with the show alone right now. But speaking of like those narratives that you make in your head, there's this guy on there, and he's basically conserved his energy and didn't do a lot of things. And he's basically, it's just literally him in a camera. And he's like, I don't fucking care what other people think. Maybe people think I'm not doing shit, but like I'm conserving my energy and blah, blah. And that was his whole narrative the whole time. And I'm like, dude, no one fucking cares.
Just do it.
I'm like, dude, no one cares. And it just reminded me, I'm like, dude, generally people don't care what you're really doing, but we have these like narratives that we put in our head, like, oh, like what are people gonna think of me? No one fucking gives a shit what you do. You know what I mean? Like,
because they're all worried what people are thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, just do what you want to do. Yeah. Anyways, I just want to say that.
No, I love that. And I appreciate that because I basically come to the same conclusion of like, dude, you're the one who cares the most about what you're doing. And other people are just like, oh, that's what you do? Okay, cool. Like, I'm looking at my phone.
So do you know, before you do the voice?
Yeah, no problem.
Do you know the story of Narcissus?
Mm-hmm.
So, for people out there, like, the story of Narcissus is essentially Narcissus comes over to the lake and stares into the lake so much, staring at his beauty, and then falls in and drowns and dies. And then someone comes by and talks to the lake and says to the lake, so what did Narcissus look like? Wasn't he just like incredibly beautiful? And the lake says, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't even looking at Narcissus because I got lost in his eyes and I was looking at my own reflection. Right? So it's like that tells me it's like people, they're generally focused on themselves.
Right.
Just be yourself. Just be yourself.
Even the lake itself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the piece I just released, I publish every Wednesday on my Substack, and yesterday was the whole theme was life is a symphony, and the quote at the opener was Oscar Wilde, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." And that's something that I think about a lot because, in the words of Dr. Seuss, like nobody's, what is it? Paraphrasing, but like nobody's youer than you. It's truer than true.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I told ChatGPT to write the script to a movie trailer for a biopic film about Keebler the Elf so I could troll my brother. And here you go. Opening shot of a verdant forest with birds chirping in the background. Narrator. In a world of magical forests, where every tree has a story to tell, there lived a tiny elf who would go on to make history. Cut to a shot of Keebler, a small elf, wearing his signature green jacket and hat. He's working in a bustling bakery, surrounded by dozens of other elves. Narrator. Meet Keebler, the elf who changed the world of baked goods forever. Cut to a shot of Keebler deep in thought, poring over a recipe book. Keebler. I think I've got it. Cut to a shot of Keebler pulling a tray of cookies out of the oven, grinning as they come out perfectly. Keebler was no ordinary elf. He had a passion for baking and a talent for creating the most delicious treats that everybody loved. Cut to a shot of Keebler presenting his cookies to a group of skeptical elves. Keebler, try them, you'll see. And try them they did. The delicious taste of Keebler's cookies quickly spread throughout the magical forest, and soon everyone was talking about them. Cut to a shot of a giant castle, with a king sitting on his throne, surrounded by courtiers. King, bring me the elf who makes these incredible cookies. Cut to a shot of Keebler being led into the king's throne room, looking slightly intimidated. King, I've heard about your cookies, Keebler, and they say they're the best in the land. Keebler, why, thank you, your majesty. Narrator. And from that moment on, Keebler's life changed forever. He was no longer just an ordinary elf, but a legend in his own right. Cut to a shot of Keebler, now an elderly elf, sitting in a rocking chair in his bakery. Keebler, I never imagined that my little cookies would bring so much joy to so many people. Keebler's legacy lives on to this day, inspiring bakers and cookie lovers all over the world. Closing shot of the bakery with the sign Keebler's Bakery hanging outside. This is the story of Keebler, the elf who made the world a sweeter place. Title card, Keebler, a baking legend.
Dude, that's so good.
It's so good, and it's so hard to to do that without just busting up laughing in the middle. But this is the power of what one sentence, write me a script to a movie trailer for a biopic film about Keebler the Elf. Like, it's just a boredom, like a joke meme that turned into this whole thing. And it's like, this is written by a neural network.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's
It
pretty
is
wild.
so wild, man.
I
But
love
so
how
fun.
yeah, I love how it's like Keebler walks the narrator is like Keebler walks to the like to the king's castle and he's nervous or something. I forget exactly what it
Yeah.
said, but
There's like I don't know, there's something about like you could just take this script and do it like we just did, completely raw, but you can make little tweaks here and there, which was the original idea that you had suggested, and you could write things so fast. I mean, I've never used it for my project except for to try to find like a synonym for a word or a better way to say something when I was just like, what the heck am I supposed to say?
yeah,
Tried it in the last one, and I said something about Stevie Nicks' smoky voice, and that was like a suggestion I got from ChatGPT, was the word smoky to
yeah,
describe her voice. And I think it's fascinating. I know there's a lot of fears with the advancement of technology, but you can tell ChatGPT to write you the code for a website and string together a website pretty quickly. And there's all these threads going on Twitter right now of people using GPT-4 to do some pretty incredible stuff fairly quickly. I'll have to
like
send
what?
you. So
Oh, okay,
there's
yes,
people are building, like rebuilding the Pong game, building Chrome extensions with no coding background whatsoever. I'm a person who has very, very minimal code skills in my current form. And I was just kind of clicking around yesterday and was like, build a website. What is it? Build a one-page website to showcase why Oscar Wilde is important in American literature. And this thing within 2 minutes spit out a one-page website with like quotes from Oscar Wilde, the kind of like a scale of the books that he had written, the picture of Dorian Gray, importance of being earnest, and information just like, whoa, oh my God, now all of a sudden this thing exists, and it's very, very bare bones. You would have to go through and do a lot of editing, but you have the base level kind of shell of what you could go on to create with some sort of information already in there. And so I think it's fascinating that, you know, when you and I were youngsters and the internet first came out to the public, it was chat rooms and like learning how to eventually search for something using keywords. And now kids are writing prompts. And the thing, someone already found that ChatGPT-4 got a 90% on the bar exam when he fed the bar exam into it. And all these other MSATs and just all these tests, it's like in the 90th percentile. So who knows what people are going to do with that? Or the whole thing of like writing and plagiarism goes real deep now with
totally.
a tool like ChatGPT-4 that can write an entire essay for a kid in grade school. Who knows if the kid really wrote that thing or not?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like with that Wall-E example, is, you know, all this stuff, it's just gonna make people lazier. You know, like it'll help innovation. It'll help, you know, people come up with new ideas and things like that. But I don't know, like I said earlier, I think you know, it's good to do things that are difficult, you know. I mean, and I say that with the caveat that I you know, I use some of these tools too. You know, they help me come up with some ideas or like explore different ideas. It's funny that you brought up Oscar Wilde because I actually wrote something for the Tarot Project regarding Oscar Wilde and one of his short stories. And I use ChatGPT as like a research tool for that,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think like, yeah, it's just gonna be it's gonna be interesting. There was I went to this when I was in the Bay Area a couple of months ago. I went to this it was like a seminar with this author and Eric Davis, the guy who wrote Technosis, the book I keep on bringing up, and this guy that wrote this book, they did it in collaboration with AI, and so like there's certain sentences that were bold that they put in, and it was basically about like that ChatGPT wrote, and then it's like in non-bold. It was what they wrote, and so it was like this ongoing sort of conversation, but it was like a novel, and I think the book is essentially about, well, it's called Air Age Blueprint, and the premise of the book, from what I understood, like they read it, is that there's this person that like works for this AI company called Shaman AI, I think, and it's like a spirituality sort of like AI program. It's I'm paraphrasing. I might be getting this wrong. Um, and basically like they're going on this like spiritual journey, trying to figure out, trying to figure out their life, but it's also like this relationship with technology. So
Interesting.
it's interesting. Yeah. But there's going to be a time when it's just like we're going to be so integrated with AI that like, it's just going to be part of like people's process, like with writing, and it's going to make things difficult in the sense that, people who had copywriting jobs, that's probably going to go away or going to be dwindled down. Like like maybe a team of 10 will be one person,
Right.
or like illustration jobs, and I think that's what a lot of people fear, and it's going to happen, unfortunately. Like illustration jobs will be, or like storyboard artists, it's like you just feed it through Midjourney or through Dali or whatever, and you're going to have your storyboard, and so
Right.
yeah, it's going to be hard for some people. It really is,
I
and
think
I
it's
mean, oh, sorry, what?
no, keep going.
Well, I was going to say, I saw that as a photographer as I was entering in, like photographers used to get paid a lot of money
Right.
because it was a craft that not that many people could do. Magazines would pay a lot of money, like in the 90s and like 80s and stuff, because like, first of all, they had lots of money, and that was prior to like the internet. So like mass media was the magazines and the newspapers and these sort of, and those sort of things, right? And then so, some of these people would be making like tons of money. When I entered into photography, like, you know, magazines were going under. I would get paid for some magazines, but, and I think it's the same thing with writers. Like, if you're writing for Forbes, or it's almost like from what I understand, it's almost like a piece that establishes your career to write other things. It's not like you might get paid, what, a couple $100,
Right. I
but
think that's what actors say sometimes too. Like you do 3 for them and 1 for you.
yeah. 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 So you do like your Marvel film, and you do like a blah, blah, blah. I mean, like if you're at that
At that
caliber of
level.
acting, and then you do
Right.
a Sundance film, because,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to be paid that much. But yeah. And I mean, there's so much media out there now. It's hard, like actors used to get paid like way more than they do now. There's just too many options out there, you know?
And then I think too that, as artificial intelligence becomes more and more and more accepted by the mainstream, you look at the bell curve, there's always outliers of like the quote unquote Luddites at one end who just will refuse to adopt it entirely, and then um, super advanced people on the other side who will come up with really, really special and unique ways to use it to completely amplify the personality of what they're already doing. And then a bunch of people in the middle who are just going to be like, oh yeah, I just put in the thing and then it tells me what to do and then I do that. And I think that's just kind of the way that it always has been. And so now we'll probably see the world change real fast. I mean, what we went from vacuum tubes to silicon chips pretty fast. And now we're going from inquiry-based searching to prompt writing and AI creation overnight, basically. And I know a lot of people are really excited about GPT-4. And I'm now asking myself, after conversing with you, especially, and now after this conversation too, during it, like, how can I use it better to amplify what I'm doing so I don't get left behind or get, I don't know, maybe left behind is the best way to say it, but like, how do I amplify what I'm doing now with the tools that are at my disposal? Because other people are sure as heck going to be doing it. And I will always want to do things my way in the way that feels right based on how I choose to guide myself or receive guidance through life. But yeah, I'm inspired by, what you've done with Mid-Journey. I don't know if you've done Dolly too, but the conversations we've had about ChatGPT, it's intriguing and it's fun. It writes stories about Keebler the Elf just so you control your brother, whatever you want, see what you can push into. And, if someone is afraid of it, then maybe just getting your hands dirty and just trying it out is going to be the thing that helps to overcome that fear. Because I've talked to some people who are terrified of it and they're like, this is going to replace all creators. Well, you're still human. You still have the unknown factor to you that your baby, whether you like it or not, the neural network that powers this thing, it's built in your image. So you have a factor about you that it doesn't have. And that is your humanity.
Yeah. I think it's just, it's scary for a lot of people that have, like an illustrator, for instance, that have honed in and spent their entire life working on this skill set. And if it goes away to where they can't make money from it, I mean, I empathize with it. I understand, like, there's no like easy answer for these things. Uh, AI, all that. I mean, it's gonna be around. Like if companies can profit from it and put money behind it and support it, and a lot of big companies are supporting these artificial intelligent programs, right? And so, I mean, it's gonna advance. So there's no real easy thing to really say about it, but it's here to stay, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have entered into a new era.
Yes. Yeah, we have, man. So it's like, how do you just keep your sanity through it? I mean, maybe just keep to the simple, like, that's what I think, like, so that's all I really want. I mean, I have a lot of like, goals and sort of things, but yeah, I don't know. I feel a lot of peace right now. So I don't know. I feel good. This is a place that I've wanted to be, and I am. So
yeah, I think there's something incredibly how do I say, like, I aspire to rejecting society and returning to the woods, as like the ultimate goal. Homesteading with a farm and ideally a wife and some children and animals and stuff, and being completely self-reliant and being off the grid and have my family, sure, write stuff and publish books or whatever and share yourself with the world, but to not have to be in a place that in situations that feel fake and manufactured, to be wrapped in the arms of my mother nature constantly. And with things like ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, it really feels in many ways like we're going in a direction that doesn't feel natural. And what I crave is the peace of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be a little bit scary to confront these things. But now I'm also kind of looking at it as like, okay, well, if life is about equal opposites in balance, then how can I use this to get what I ultimately want? Can this increase my trajectory to getting there? Because that's what I want. And how much money do I really need to have to get that? I mean, I could just reject it all right now and go to the woods and build a cabin, but I haven't. It's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, whether you accept it or reject it, it's here to stay, unfortunately, you know? So I think probably the sooner that we can all accept that, these things exist. It's like what I think about is like, how do you make peace with these things that are outside of your control, whatever they may be? It could be technology, it could be a lot of different things. But yeah, I don't know. Life is getting more and more complicated, but I think you have the power, or we all have the power within us to like just appreciate very simple things. And I think generally those things are the more memorable things anyways, like spending time with the family, spending time with like random people you meet, or like like sharing a meal with someone that you care about, having a meaningful conversation with someone that you care about, so I try to just be at peace knowing that at least those things exist for me, like we can have this conversation. I appreciate you, you appreciate me, and we might go, do the Pacific Crest Trail, I don't know, maybe. And like, so I don't know, man, that's beautiful, man. That's like, like isolation is the thing. Like true isolation, where you just like completely isolate yourself from people. That's the thing that'll really do damage to you, and so we are, like I said, we are such social creatures. We need these social interactions, hopefully more in person, right? But even like digitally, I think it's nice in its own way, because we're exchanging like a cerebral connection.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it all bad? Is it all good? I mean, I feel like there's more gray to, advanced technologies, and and we really should just try to like make sense out of it for ourselves, and have some healthy like digital hygiene too. Like I don't have social media on my phone, like any social media. I haven't done that for years, and like for me it can be very distracting, and it's designed to be that way. So
yeah, I mean, I do it for a living, and so in my world, the story, at least I tell myself right now, is I have to have it on my phone. But I learned very quickly, for me, that having push notifications of any kind was literally driving me crazy. I would be like, started working for some company, some ad agency, small time, like 10 years ago or whatever. And I'd be laying in bed at night and all of a sudden getting Facebook notifications for my first ever clients, which were nightclubs. And it's just like, 11 p.m. at night, you're laying in bed here and feeling yourself jump up because I need to check that now. I need to know, but you don't always need to know. And
Yeah.
I've embraced more and more and more no push notifications except for like text messages. Even those sometimes can be a little very intrusive. But like we did at the beginning of the call, we're both on do not disturb now. I've been living my life for many hours per day on some days, not every day, but I working on that. Do not disturb mode on the phone. And now I don't even sleep in the same level of a house with the phone. It's in a completely different space. One of the best things I ever did is getting a little digital alarm clock for $3 or whatever at the thrift store. And I just used that until I no longer needed an alarm to wake up in the morning on a consistent basis. And taking time away from that thing, I mean, it's a double-edged sword for sure, and taking time away from it is really good for your brain. And so it's inspiring to hear that you don't have any kind of social stuff on there, because that is the one thing right now that I'm working on with my own presence the most. Why is it that like you're just sitting for 5 minutes and you're sitting, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere just an impulse fires like, oh, look at the phone, and then you're looking at the phone.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Please.
Okay, so what I do is I have this phone. This phone is my main phone, and it doesn't have any social media on it. I have another phone that is connected to the internet, right? And that has all my social media on it. And that's my old phone. It's like my old Samsung, like S8 or S8 Plus, whatever. And so like, and there will be weeks when I don't look at social media at all. Like I saw like the average amount of time I spend a week like on there, because it shows it's like it's 15 minutes a week or something like that. And
that's
like,
amazing.
Yeah. So, and I actually got this idea from Atomic Habits, from that book by James Clear, saying, it's like essentially like promoting like a digital hygiene to have, like one device that has like your social media and then the other one doesn't. And ever since then, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I just started doing it.
That's a good idea, because I need to get a new phone. I've had my phone since 2019, something like that, early January 2019 maybe, and it's seen better days for sure. It did the whole bike tour and all that stuff and got kind of banged up out there on the road, so it's about time. And once I sold TikTok services to a client and put that app on my phone, the battery started draining 2 or 3 times as fast every single day, just overnight like that. And so it just kind of intriguing that like, wow, okay, well, hey, I could just get my new phone and see how that works out for me, and keep the old one around and just get everything else off of it and just make it the social media phone for work, and then leave it at home.
You'll be surprised how much that'll help you psychologically. Honestly.
Oh
like,
yeah.
And I mean, it's good and bad, because like, people message me, like friends on Instagram, and then like 3 weeks later, I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you, blah blah blah, but like, that's fine. And also like, I don't know, man, like deleting dating apps, like, I don't know, I think it's just I don't personally like the psychological response of like, it's essentially ingraining within you like like accept or reject, and you can go on dates with people sometimes, and it's like, well, this person doesn't fit like totally into my life, so there's gonna be another person, right? And I think these apps And that's kind of like another the thesis of technosis is that like these different technologies changes our communication, like the way that we communicate with each other, right? Like physically, I mean, you know, you and I are sitting here, you know, we have we have microphones and everything, and you know, we're staring. I'm in Brazil, you're, you know, you're in South Dakota, right? And like I said, it's like it's great, but it changes the dynamic, right? Like we still share this energy. I can see you and stuff, but there's a different energy when you're in person, right? I mean, think about this. When's the last time, like speaking of dating apps, when's the last time you went up to someone that you found attractive and you're like, look, like, you know, like at the grocery store, like, look, like, strike a conversation and have, you know, share a joke, and like you're like, look, I think I like you, you know, you're cool, like, you know, maybe can I have your number or blah blah blah, you know, like think about when's the last time you did that.
For me, I've never had a dating app, and so that's the only way
Oh,
I've ever
okay.
done it.
Oh,
But
nice. That's perfect. That's great.
yeah, I mean, I'm also like
That's great.
very, very focused on the work that I'm doing right now. And so I don't do that very often, but I basically
Yeah.
have a rule within myself that like I'm attracted to women, when there is a woman that really captures my attention like that, if I feel the connection, I will just be very direct about it. And that happened when I was on the bicycle tour in Iowa at like a restaurant. And then me and that girl ended up together at one point, like after time away. Like that's a whole story in itself. I could write a book on if she was ever comfortable with that, because it's quite a story. And I
Well, you can
still
always
have so
write
much
it as
love for
like
her.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's cool, man.
I've never used a dating app. I've never done it. And, you know, everything that you had to say, I think is kind of the basis of my mentality about it, because to me, I saw a friend with it and I was like, can I see how this even works? And I looked at Tinder and was like, wow, this like legitimately feels like a meat market to me. Like it's
It's
like
like, man, this sucks.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then like what you said really captivated me too, because then what, you're on a date and you're like, oh well, this person doesn't really meet my need on this and that. And I think we all do that at a certain extent, but then there's this
Yeah.
like flipping a channel on a TV or something. Oh, boring, 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 boring. Ooh,
Right.
this one has my attention, but I just got bored 5 minutes later. Flip, 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 flip. So
Exactly. So you think about like you're ingraining that psychologically, whether you're conscious of it or not,
yeah,
into your thought process, right? And so it changes the way that we interact with our fellow humans,
mm,
right? And so if you're constantly thinking like there's better option, there's a better option, you know, I don't think that's positive, you know? Like there's something about like being with someone and working through things and not like just being like, well, you don't match this thing and this thing, and so like go fuck yourself, you know what I mean? Like perhaps I'm just romanticizing the way things used to be, you know, and um but making things more convenient and more accessible, it's not always a good thing,
no, and
you
that's
know.
maybe the whole mentality of doing hard stuff every day. You know, that's a really good thing to bring back up here, because not everything needs to be easy all the time, especially dating. You know, I would personally rather meet my future wife in a bookstore than on an app. But that's just me, and I'm not going to judge anyone who wants to do it in whatever way they want. But I think that everything you're saying is true, and like, you know, your proclivity to want to do difficult things opens you up to even thinking about that, where the way that it changes your brain is so sneaky and so subtle, and just you reinforce it every time you swipe. So it's like subconsciously you're literally programming yourself to be less natural than you were before those things existed. And I think people just kind of forget and slip into pattern-based behaviors without the observer, almost like a third party. We are third dimensional consciousness in the human body, which means that, like, not only are you the actor, you're also the observer, but you also have the ability to observe that you're observing the actor. Whereas, like, a dog is in the second dimension of behavior, and the dog is just like, I'm acting, scary sound, garbage truck, whoa, reflexive programmed behavior. And so, like, as humans, here we are stewarding the dogs in a way to move to the next level up of consciousness itself. But how many of us as humans are just kind of living in the second dimensional paradigm because we're ingrained and we're not really using that power of observation to see ourselves? And that's like what we were talking about earlier with people worrying, and my own proclivity to worry in the past, especially of what other people were thinking. That's like, that is the observer, but it's tuned in on yourself, maybe in a way that's not helpful and productive. And if you can recognize when you have something going on that, like, I don't know, just instead of beating yourself up about things, just use your power to recognize it and move on from it and focus that onto where it's going to be productive rather than destructive. And the dating app thing is kind of funny because I do think it does kind of breed this mentality of like, oh, well, if you just say the wrong thing or aren't woke enough for me or whatever it is, then I can just swipe and find someone better than you really fast. But not every conversation is meant to be an easy one.
Totally. Yeah. I agree, man. Sometimes I think that the dogs have it figured out better than the humans. I mean, think about it. Who's really the master?
Who's putting the bag on his hand and picking up the doo-doo?
Yeah, exactly. Right? You pick up the dog shit, you feed the dog, you work for the dog. You provide the dog with this beautiful home. Look, you even buy him its bed, right? Like, who really has it figured out, right? Is it?
And all he does is shit and give unconditional love.
Yeah. And I don't know, a further sense of consciousness, and, like, all these books that we read and these existential crises that we potentially have. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe that dog has it figured out more than we do.
I think you're onto something. And that's like the learn, teach, learn relationship from, like, the Tao Te Ching. While we're stewarding the dog to move up to a third dimensional consciousness, they're also showing us the most important thing that we forgot, which is unconditional love, in my opinion, at least. Because as humans, we have the ability to storytell. Oh, I love Yoshino, but this one time he said this one thing or whatever. And then there's a limit to my love because of that story that I just told myself about my friend. And that's kind of a wild realization to realize, where I personally thought I had reached a level at one point that I can love everyone unconditionally now. I'm healed. I'm better. Well, that goes back to the Thich Nhat Hanh quote that we were talking about too. Like, what are you trying to be better from? And for me, the answer to that was like, oh, look at all these stories that I'm assigning to people, where my dog just looks at me and he's like, dude, it's you. You're amazing. I leave for 2 hours and go do errands, and this dude's doing backflips. I come home, he's like, screaming. It's like,
you're home.
Dude.
I thought you were gone. I thought you were gone for eternity.
Yeah, like, I love you too, dude. But when I spent 3 or 4 hours making an incredible, beautiful dinner, and I sit down with my table and my salt and pepper and stuff, and he's sitting there like, looking at me because he knows
Yeah.
he's going to get some of the steak or whatever.
Yeah.
I just look at him and I think like, hey, man, when you hit 3D and you got these bad boys, whatever realm you end up in, and you got thumbs, you're going to make so much amazing food for yourself. But right now, you get my scraps. You get the good stuff. I'll give you the good stuff, and I'll cook all my meat with only salt now so you can share it with me. But you got to make your own. You got to evolve to the point where you got your own thumbs, because you're not getting all of it, pal. I know you want it all, but you ain't getting all of it.
Yeah, I think dogs would be way more miserable if they had to work all the time. I mean, I don't know. This is such a funny conversation. Like,
I know.
um, yeah, dags,
Digs.
them dags.
Well, I'm going to have to kind of shift gears here. It's getting to be about 2 p.m. my time, which you're 2 hours ahead of me.
Yeah, it's 4. Yeah.
Man, I don't want to, but I have to, because there's other things that I have to accomplish today too. But what a joy it is to see your face and get to talk to you. I know we get to talk
Me
on the
too,
phone,
man.
here and there, but man, thank you for the gift of your time and for being you and for the amazing work you do. And I would encourage anyone listening or watching this conversation, I'll put up all the links and information of where you can find Yoshino. Go and give him some love on the socials so that in 3 weeks to a month and a half from now, he can respond to your comments. And man, thank you. Is there anything like a closing message that you would like to share with the world from a different show than Artist Decoded, to a different audience?
Well, listen to your intuition. Really listen and be in touch with your intuition. And you can practice that on a very small scale. But when something doesn't feel right, probably listen to that. And when something feels really right, listen to that too. I think, yeah, I've been on a quest to step deeper into my own intuition, and and really be honest with yourself. Be honest with the things that you want in life. Don't settle for a relationship that you know isn't right for you. Don't settle for a job that you hate. There's always ways that you can make money out in the world. It might take some time and maybe a little bit of suffering to get there, but don't give up on your dreams too. Like, and also know when that dream isn't, that dream that you had before isn't quite a dream that that will actually benefit you. Does that make sense, right?
It sure does.
Because we can be very stubborn as human beings, but by listening to your intuition and being honest with yourself, you'll be able to discover things about yourself. I mean, and they call it a journey for a reason. And it's a very beautiful journey. Maybe you won't feel happy all the time. Happiness is an emotion. I think that we're programmed by, especially in the United States, like the pursuit of happiness, right? Like it's something that you need to pursue, right? But life is about ebbs and flows, and life is about suffering. You don't have to always suffer, but yeah, it's complex. So be kind to yourself. I know I said a lot of advice, but I'll end with that. Be kind to yourself.
That's amazing advice, man. I couldn't think of a better way to say it. The intuition, I think, leads to that ability to be kind to yourself. Because if you don't follow your intuition, you're probably going to find yourself beating yourself up over a lot of things that what's that story sound like? I should have listened to my heart. I should have listened to, I knew it, but I didn't do it. And when you do, you end up feeling a lot better about yourself. And then the kindness that you can extend to everyone else is amplified as well. And then we all get to live in a more peaceful world together.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Yoshino. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this with the world and just giving my audience
Yeah.
a chance to know you. I know you got your own audience, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your week to come and do this.
Well, I appreciate you for inviting me to do this. And when it's out, let me know and I'll promote it. And I won't take like 4 weeks to to put it out there.
Man, take as much
yeah.
time as you need. Hey, you're all good.
No, but no. I'll post it whenever whenever you send it to me. And actually, do you think I can have access to the raw recording? I just like to save these things, just for my
Absolutely.
archive.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'll
Sweet.
upload it online for you, and then I do my own little kind of production on it. If you've looked at any of the episodes before this on YouTube, I'll do my kind of thing with it and whatnot. But absolutely, man, you can have the raw of this.
Cool. That sounds
problem.
good, man. Sweet. Well,
Cool.
enjoy the rest of your day, man. I wish I could be out there hanging out with you in the snow. We can make snow angels together.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be a little cold to make snow angels today, but hey, man, the open invite is I have 2 bedrooms in this house that you could sleep in anytime you want.
That's awesome.
So when you come back stateside, if you feel like going for a drive out into the middle of the corn by the time it's growing, you might want to come in the spring or the summertime if you ever did want to come out this way. But open invite anytime. Come stay for free. Come
Thanks, man.
teach me how to box and tune my face up a little bit.
Tune your face up.
Welcome to the human experience. Today we're talking about pain.
Yeah. I definitely
man.
love to show you how to box, man.
Yeah, well, anytime, my door is always open and my home is always open, and you're welcome here, brother. So
thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. You can kick my butt in pull-ups too. I know you can do a lot more than me. But I'm gonna keep practicing. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going.
You'll get there in time, Just be kind to yourself. Seriously.
Thank you.
Just know that your body is floating in space. You're essentially you're building, right? You're building the muscle in order to pull yourself. And don't beat yourself up too much.
I will try not to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you,
man.
my good man. You have an amazing rest of your trip, and I'm sure I'll talk to you sooner than later.
Definitely. Sounds good.
All right, brother.
Man.
Signing
Take it
off.
easy. All right, man.
Be well.
You too. Bye.
See ya.
So there you have it, my friends. You can hear for yourself what a thoughtful individual Yoshino is, and I hope that you will go and listen to his show on Spotify or wherever you like to find your podcasts, The Artist Decoded. Listen to what he does, because he is a special individual, and I am ever so grateful to you, Yoshino, for taking the time out of your travels and your busy schedule to come here and speak with us at the Human Experience. I treasure our conversations every time we get to talk, and to get to see you, even if just on Zoom for a little bit. Oh man, I appreciate it so much. So that's it for our show for today. I think we've used up as much of your time as we possibly can for now. Didn't expect for the show to go that long, and what a joy it was to get to have a nice long conversation with a friend. And I thank you for being here. If you made it here all the way to the end, holy cow, this is the biggest production that I've ever worked on in my life, and totaling in over 4 hours or whatever. This is a big old notch in the belt for those times that I do decide to wear pants. So, for today, this is your buddy, Hubert Manley, signing off. I thank you for your presence, and I thank you for being you. I'm going back to school for a little bit here, baby. But first, I guess I better find some pants. Take care.
Peace.